How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
the end. I'm burning in the stone, there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone, what have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone, there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone, this is the final
All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to Spy Stream, everyone. Spy Stream is when we go inside a live leftist training and we watch it live. Who has never been to Spy Stream before? 1 in the chat if you are new to Spy Stream, 2 in the chat if you've been to maybe 1 or 2 Spy Streams, 3 in the chat if you are a Spy Stream veteran. Let me know who's here. Now, Rumble, if you like, so I don't even know if this matters because I am having trouble streaming to Rumble right now. I don't know why that is. So I apologize to anyone. I did put this in the chat on Rumble, but like Rumble, like StreamYard is giving me a Rumble streaming error right now. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to fix it. Hopefully it fixes itself during the course of the Spy Stream. Tolkien Fan with a gifted channel membership. W, bro. Really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Guys, Spy Stream is when we literally go inside a live leftist call. This is live. We are not there to disrupt their call. We are not there to cause problems with their call. We are there to listen to them, to understand what they're planning, how they're organizing, what they're doing next, what we can expect for them to show up in the world as. And that is the purpose of this. It is not to cause problems. It is not to be disruptive. I never want people to raid. I never want people to disrupt them or be dicks or say anything hateful or any of that stuff. We are but a fly on the wall. That is our purpose. We are a fly on the wall to document what is going on, to be able to understand what we can expect to see next. Now, I just want to point out, we do have a channel membership goal today. We are about 54 channel memberships away from meeting our channel membership goal. The reason that Spy Stream is public today is because yesterday, so many people were so generous in terms of meeting the channel membership goal. And my position is, guys, Spy Stream really should be a supporter exclusive. I've been doing it as a supporter exclusive for years. It actually makes it much easier for me to do it as a supporter exclusive because it cuts down on instances of people, ratting on us and all that stuff. I mean, we've had this issue with Stacy lately, although I think her channel membership may have expired at this point. So, and she hasn't been able to even stop us anyway. But I decided to make Spy Stream public more regularly as a little bit of a test. I wanted to see if this was content that was more interesting to the general public because a lot of people have given really great feedback on Spy Stream lately. I also wanted to see if people would continue to financially support the channel if I made what is normally a supporter perk public. Okay. And so if you guys want spy streams to continue to be public, we got to meet the channel membership goal. I do not do a channel membership goal every day of the week. I only do them when we're doing the really important stuff. And so if you want to see spy streams be public next week, and there are already 3 spy streams scheduled for next week. There are already 3 organizing calls that I know about, and there may be more conceivably because the No Kings protest is coming up. If you want to continue this to be a public event that anyone can go to see what's going on, please make sure you're donating some channel memberships. If every single person in the chat right now just donated 1 channel membership, which is $5 in order to fund my work, then we would already be done. Ding, ding, ding. Please tell them over on Rumble. I can't. Are you seeing the stream, bro? Are you seeing the stream? StreamYard needs to integrate with Rumble chat. Well, Rumble needs to integrate with StreamYard is what actually needs to happen. Like, Rumble needs to integrate with StreamYard. I don't even think Rumble is working right now. Let me try again. Let me just try again. What you got to do when you get an error in StreamYard is to turn it off and turn it back on. So let me just, we're not turning the stream off, but we'll turn the Rumble stream off specifically and turn it back on. See if it catches this. Yay! I think Rumble is working! I got the green check for Rumble now. All we had to do was turn it off and turn it back on 5 or 6 times. And we got there. We got there. Anthony and with the dub, with the gifted channel membership. Thank you, bro. Really do appreciate it. Now, guys, as a reminder, I do not talk over Spy Stream because this is my recording too. But I will be interacting in the chat. And of course, I will be giving W's and acknowledging super chats as they come in and stuff like that. Let me just get our Spy Stream thing up. There we go. There we go. Hey, Megan, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the cult, Megan. We appreciate you being here. You know, your life is over. You're never going to see the world the same way again. We're totally going to fuck everything up for you, but you're going to have friends during the Marxist Revolution, and, you know, we'll support each other and stuff like that. So I do appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. We'll add that to the channel membership goal, almost at our halfway point. Guys, I know we can hit that goal before the end of the stream today. I have full faith and confidence that we can hit that goal. Now, the first organization that we're going to be watching tonight, we haven't watched in a while. It's a little bit different than the normal ones. I know veterans on the channel will recognize the organization. I'm not going to tell Rumble stream is down again. Okay, that's StreamYard's fault, not my fault, Rumble. I'm trying my best here. So I know veterans on the channel will recognize the organization that we're going to watch first. Hint. It has to do with K through 12 schools. We are going to be watching your kids' teachers in the K through 12 schools. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern, we are switching over to another spy stream because there are 2 organizing meetings. You know, Reagan knows. Reagan already knows what we're doing. Reagan already knows. So let us get up and running here. Hang on 1 second. Oh, man, are you serious? Are you serious? I hate it when they do that. Hang on. Do 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 do. 1 second, please. 1 second. S'il vous plaît. Okay. We're in. Gotta wait for it to start, though. Gotta wait for it to start. How's everyone doing tonight? Please make sure you mount the like button for me. Should I put on darker glasses for spy stream? Should I put on some spy glasses? Let's do some spy glasses. Let's do the spy glasses, shall we? Gotta go incognito for spy stream. Peggy, W's for Peggy. Thank you for the channel membership, Peggy. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Almost there, guys. Almost halfway. You guys rock. Thank you to everyone who's donated channel membership so far. Really appreciate you guys. You guys keep the channel going. Can't do it without you. I'm 100% completely funded independently. One of the only truly independent people doing this sort of thing, so I can tell you guys the truth. Yeah, these are our 007 spy glasses. Yep, exactly. Not to be confused with the vintage Christian Dior glasses. See, I need to start wearing my shirts like this just for Ethan Ralph, don't I? I need to like start wearing my shirts that are now way too big for me, just like this, just for assholes like Ethan Ralph who doubt my weight loss. You guys ready? You guys ready to go? That actually doesn't look bad. I maybe should wear my shirts like this. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just would do my shirts like this. You like the other shades I got with the triangle shape? Oh, do I have those here? No, those are in the other room. I got to break those out though. Those I like those too. Those are those are nice ones. I'll break those out another time. Maybe I'll break those out for the spy stream next week, but they're in the other room right now. I don't want to go get them. But no, I do like those as well. I gotta make a sunglasses display in my office so I can access whatever sunglasses I want at a moment's notice. Old sub! W's, old sub. Really appreciate you, bro. What an awesome supporter. He makes stickers, he gets tattoos, and he doles out channel memberships like the channel membership fairy. Thank you so much, old sub. Really, really, really appreciate it. You rock, bro. You rock. Look, we're almost up to 60. Look at that. Boom. What a difference one channel membership gift can make. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, you're ready to learn? Bring it on. Well, we're going to bring it on tonight. I'll tell you that. You guys are going to love that. I think people who are new to the first one, you guys are going to love this. You guys are going to love it. Guys, as a reminder, socialists exist on their own time, so I can't control when they actually start the meeting. That is entirely up to them. So we're just hanging out right now, waiting for them to start the meeting. So that is what it is. Again, I do not talk over the streams because this is my recording too, so we don't want to disrupt the recording. I do chat in and maybe display stuff on the screen. If you guys have comments that you want to make in the chat that are really good and insightful, I will display those on the screen as well. I cannot fix your technical difficulties. I can't fix their technical difficulties. I can't fix your volume. I can't fix their volume. This is a live training. We got to be flexible. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to figure out I'm streaming them and kick me out, even though they don't know what name I'm under. So, you know, that there's that. But yeah, so we just got to be flexible with Spy Stream. I was new to the last one, very messed up. I've learned that anytime you say you guys are going to love this, it's going to be more. Yep. That is actually generally a pretty good rule of thumb. If I say something to the effect of, you guys are
dive in. Welcome, welcome, welcome as some more folks start to join us.
Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. On behalf of Rethinking Schools, we would like to welcome everyone to a conversation with historian Elizabeth Todd Breland, who co-wrote Karlyn Lewis's memoir, I Didn't Come Here to Lie. My name is Sierra Kaler-Jones, and I am the Executive Director of Rethinking Schools. Today, I'll be joined by my comrade, my friend, and Rethinking Schools editor, Jesse Hagopian, for the conversation. Today's ASL interpretation is provided by Crystal Butler and Matthew Pouncey. Please add to the chat. Let us know where you're Zooming from. Let us know why you're joining this discussion this evening. We would love to hear from you. Introduce yourself in the chat, where you're Zooming in from, and why you are joining us for the discussion this evening. Now, at Rethinking Schools, our mission is to sustain and strengthen public education through social justice teaching and education activism. Part of how we do this is through our teacher unions and social justice campaign. We have a social justice teacher union newsletter that features stories, victories, and strategies from unions, as well as study groups that engage in political study on the history and the how-tos of social justice unionism. So we're really looking forward to this particular conversation as part of that campaign. We are very excited to welcome Elizabeth Todd Breland, Associate Professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and co-author of I Didn't Come Here to Lie, My Life and Education, the memoir of the late Karlyn Lewis. Welcome, welcome. So good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you all this evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's just great to be in this space. You do amazing work.
Thank you, thank you. So we would love if you might start by just telling us a little about the backstory, which is really, really interesting, how you came to work with Karlyn Lewis on her memoir.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a historian, and I was writing a historical book about the history of Black politics and education organizing in Chicago. And as part of the research for this book, I was doing research at the Chicago Teachers Union, looking at their old newsletters. And so I was asked to do a lunch and learn for the staff. So I was like, great, that would be awesome. So, I'm getting myself, got my little slideshow, doing my lunch and learn. And then Karen walks in. And I was like, oh, let me straighten up, get it together. I keep doing my presentation, and then, it's discussion time, Q&A, and she just takes over the floor and tells amazing stories. And these stories just really demonstrated how her own life was mapping onto the entire history that I was talking about. And so coming out of that, she was like, oh, we should talk more. I was like, I would love to talk more. So I ended up interviewing her for my first book, my historical book. She was a big part of the epilogue of that book. And a couple months later, my friend Joe Petty, who's an editor, came to me and was like, me and Karen want to meet with you. And I was like, okay. And so I showed up to this meeting and they're like, well, because we want you to work on her memoir. And I was like, oh, I would love to work on her memoir. And, it was interesting in listening to her talk about why she wanted to write a memoir. She was like, this is in 2017. So it's past the 2012 strike. She had already been ill for a little while and was in recovery, and said, everyone's always asking me to like blurb their book, write a foreword to their book, write an introduction. Very Karen, she's like, I'm gonna write my own damn book. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So the original arrangement was that she was going to write her own personal story, and then I would, fill in historical context, so put it in a larger frame. But about 6 months or so into our work in this manner, she had a really bad stroke. And after that, she could no longer write, but she could still talk. So we did long form interviews that I recorded, sometimes just me and her, sometimes Joe was there too. And we recorded these interviews to create content explicitly for the book. So this started in 2017. We went all the way up to February 2020 was our last in person, right before the pandemic. And so I had all this material, and then during the pandemic had to try to put it together into book form. And I should say, Karen's a union boss. So we had an MOU, we had a book contract, I had instructions on how I was supposed to proceed. But still, it was quite the task. And it became even more difficult after she passed away in 2021, about a year after our last time together. But it was such an honor, and I still just feel so honored to be brought into this project with her.
Yeah, what an incredible job you did, and what a journey you had to go through to bring us this book. But I'm so glad you persevered with it, because Karen is so dear to me and to so many other people. She was one of my most important mentors. And, I'm living in Seattle. I'm pretty far away, but whenever she could, she would reach out and support efforts that I was a part of. From the map test boycott, she was immediately wanting to get involved and support the fight against high stakes standardized testing. And just reading your book, like, both allowed me to remember some of the most joyful moments of my life, supporting the Chicago teachers fights, and remembering her cadence and her humor and everything. So it's just such a great gift that you've given us to get to sit with her again, even though she's gone, and and to learn many new things I didn't know about her life. And so I just wanted to ask you about Karen's schooling experience as a kid, right? And how did that shape her teaching and ultimately her commitment to education justice?
Yeah, I mean, Karen, thank you for that question. Karen did have a really interesting schooling experience. She went to public schools. She lived on the south side of Chicago, on what I would describe, for those who know, as the border between Hyde Park, which is a slightly more middle class, although at that time more working class community, and Bronzeville, which is the historic destination of Black folks migrating from the South. And she talks about her first schooling experiences going into kindergarten and being disappointed. And she was disappointed because she was like, on the first day she came home and was crying because she was supposed to learn how to read. She was like, when you go to kindergarten, you learn how to read. I'm not learning how to read. And she stayed at that initial elementary school for a couple years. Then she got kicked out because she got in a little scuffle, and had to go to another elementary school nearby. And, in Chicago, most schools, elementary schools, are K through 8. So she was in that next school all the way through 8th grade. And that school, Kosminski Elementary School, she talks about how important certain teachers were to her there. They're teaching predominantly Black children. But she said, we had opportunities that at that time it was standard that you had art and music and your primary teachers knew how to play the piano. And after 8th grade, upon graduating, they took a trip to Paris. And she talks about how transformative this trip to Paris was in opening her eyes to what sort of being independent in the world could mean for her. And so after that, she went to high school. She went to Kenwood Academy High School, or at the time just called Kenwood. And it was a new school. It was only in its second year. It was built explicitly to be a school that would encourage desegregation. To a greater or lesser extent that happened. It still was a predominantly Black school, but with more white students than probably most schools that Black children went to. And these were really formative experiences for her. I should also say her parents were educators. And I think that really played a major role in her thinking and thoughts about education. And that as educators, her parents faced a lot of barriers that Black educators were facing at that time. It was very difficult for Black educators in Chicago to become fully certified teachers when her parents were coming up through the system. And so she saw those struggles alongside, I think, being very inspired by teachers and folks that she met in her own schooling.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love those stories, especially of her as a child. And that particular story you shared about her being upset that she wasn't taught to read was really funny, but also how she talks about fairness and how that would show up in her classroom experience, and how she would have that white teacher who treated her differently than her white counterparts. And so we can trace a lot of the history of Black education from a lot of Karen's experiences. And I also love too how she talked about how she would boss the other children around. So there's a lot of really fun stories that just bring her to life, or bring her back to life for all of us. And speaking of sort of tracing the history of Black education, can you talk about Karen Lewis's experiences in the Chicago Black student movement and what we can learn about Black power movement, about the feminist movement in the 60s from her personal experiences? Because she had a lot of critiques from her own personal experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you lifting this thing about fairness. I think that is something that's a thread through the entire book, and through her own sort of philosophy on life and life is this real attention to what is fair and what is unfair, to fight for what is fair and just. And you saw that when she was a student. So when she was in high school, in the fall of 1968, there was a massive Black student movement in the city of Chicago. And this was a fight for community control of schools. So for more Black educators, more Black administrators, for Black history and culture to be taught across the curriculum. And she was a part of this. And so they had these things called Liberation Mondays, and they would all walk out of school on Mondays. And they would meet up across the city, different Black students. And she talked about going to these mass meetings and meeting people like Fred Hampton, the head of the Illinois Black Panther Party, and being so inspired by him and learning from him. But to your point, also having some critiques of the movement, particularly towards the end. She was like, there was a moment, it's a real funny anecdote where she talks about, it came to this point where all of a sudden it was like the brothers wanted to be in the front. And I was like, why do they always have to be in the front? And they act like we need to sit in the back and, make bean pies. And I said, well, I don't know how to make a bean pie, and I'm not sitting in the back, right? So these are the types of stories that she would tell. But I think to your point about feminism, at that time, she says, I really thought of feminism as a high school student as something that was for white girls, right? That it was something else that I was experiencing, even though in retrospect, she had a very strong gender critique that was intersectional in nature. And so I think those experiences as a student activist were very formative. And she also talks about how the murder of Fred Hampton had a chilling effect on her, as a student activist, and just sort of thinking about her own mortality, and that she sort of peeled back a little bit from activism. But please know, she was a deeply engaged student in high school. She was in every club, right? She was the editor of the student newspaper. She was in the math and computer club. She was on student government, just like everything that she could be a part of. She was definitely a joiner.
Yeah, she was basically a savant, like just so many skills and different knowledge bases, incredible. And I'd always wondered how those social movements um, had shaped her. And I knew they must have because she was just so brilliant at speaking back to power. And I know, you know, being around Fred Hampton must have rubbed off. And I just loved that she never backed down from fights because she had that spirit in her. And I know she took it with her on to Dartmouth, where she was the only Black woman in her graduating class. And I was hoping you could talk about this experience and how it shaped her understanding of top-down leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming out of high school, she actually, I don't think she formally graduated. She just kind of left after after junior year, which I guess is a thing you could do then, and enrolled in college. And the first college that she went to actually was Mount Holyoke, all girls liberal arts school. And she started there when I think she was 16 or just turned 17 years old. So she was a young freshman and she really enjoyed it. She enjoyed, I think, the community of women that were there. Just being, to your point, she was a Renaissance woman. She like lived on the Italian floor and learned Italian. She was studying music. She was, deeply engaged in opera, right? So all of these different things. But she did leave after her sophomore year to go to Dartmouth, as she will tell, to follow a boy. And she went to follow a boyfriend up to Dartmouth. And to your point, Dartmouth was a really difficult experience for her. The institution had just turned co-ed before it had been an all men's institution. And so shifting in that environment, I think was very difficult. She was the only Black woman in that graduating class. And to your point about top-down leaderships, one of the critiques she had was actually about how they instituted coeducation at Dartmouth. And she said it was very much a top-down decision. And you could feel that as a student, that the men on campus, the young men on campus, did not want them there, particularly a Black woman, but women generally. And so it was a very difficult experience, but it did teach her like, oh, at an administrative level, decisions need to be made in different ways that get people's buy-in, that have some type of discussion and engagement, because I'm seeing what I'm experiencing here when things are just forced upon people in a top-down way.
Yes. And I love how much those experiences and her critiques ultimately shape how she shows up to education, to teaching, but also as a labor activist, as a union leader. And so one of the lines that I highlighted in the book is Karen Lewis wrote, "The foundation of union work is classroom work." So Lewis shares some of her pedagogy and her approaches to teaching throughout the book. So can you tell us a little bit more about her teaching philosophy and her practice and how that showed up in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people, right, even here in Chicago, think of her first and foremost as the head of the CTU, this amazing political force, locally, nationally, internationally. But she taught for over 20 years. And she was a chemistry teacher, which I think also kind of surprises people because, there are stereotypes about, how scientists maybe interact with folks that she very much breaks the mold of. And I think part of this, and she credits it to her own two different experiences. One, her own experience in a liberal arts education, right? And valuing that sense of what a liberal arts education could be. And also of the many careers she dipped and dived in and out of before she found teaching. She did not go straight to teaching after she graduated college. She moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where her family was from. She got married for her first marriage. She worked at American Airlines. She worked at a drug rehab center. She said one of her favorite jobs was selling Ginsu knives. So she tried a lot of things, but then eventually did, come into teaching. And one of her first full-time teaching job was at a high school called Sullivan High School. And at the time, they were embracing a program there, an experimental program for Chicago public schools. That was the Paideia program. And this was an approach to teaching that embraced the Socratic method. And of the other things Karen tried, she both applied, got into, and then dropped out of medical school. And she said between her experience in medical school and her experience in a liberal arts setting, she really appreciated the Socratic method. And it was something that she took up and used for the rest of her career as an educator, asking questions to get people to think more deeply about things, having these Socratic seminars, so that even when she went on to other schools, I think she really took that approach to education with her. And she says gift in those days to be able to teach in that way, right? To not be given a sort of drill and kill curriculum that you have to follow to the T, but to be able to explore, even in a chemistry classroom, these different ways of teaching. And so I think that is one for sure sort of pedagogical strain of her teaching that came out very clearly. And her students, sometimes it took a little while for them to get around to it. And even some of her colleagues, it took a while to get around to it. And the other thing I would say, she taught chemistry, but she stayed with a foot in lab work. So she would work in the summers in the chemical industry to sort of keep her feet wet in analytical chemistry, and then bring that back into the classroom with her. And the last thing I'll say about her teaching, she said what she did every year, the first day of class, is blow some shit up. That's what I would blow something up. It's like, because, kids are like, oh, she's like, yes, let's talk about the different types of reactions. Boom, right? So yeah, I think she was quite an amazing educator. And, recently I had a pleasure of being on a panel with her and some of her former students. And the way that they talk about her, both, of course, what they learned in the classroom, but so many lessons that they took with them beyond the classroom. And also that she was an educator that cared, right? She was going to go the extra mile. She was going to ask, hey, you seem a little off. What's going on? Oh, how are you going to you're going to college in DC? I have some family members there. Let me connect you with them, right? So just the care and attention that she took to them, I think, is also something that students left with.
That's so beautiful. And you can tell that there is a connection between her brilliant pedagogy and her brilliant union leadership work, both in terms of like the fierceness with which she defended education because she knew the power of it and what could happen if students got good education, and also because she developed skills, I think, in the classroom that helped her be a better organizer, using the Socratic method and asking questions of people around her in the struggle, I think helped her be a better leader. And I saw that so much. And we see this in the book, and we learn about the Chicago Teachers Union history and the Chicago Public Schools history that she was a part of, like Renaissance 2010. I remember that so well because we knew it was coming for us next, and we were just cheering Karlyn and the core caucus on. It was incredible. I remember the day that the core caucus won the union election, and we knew finally working people have a base of power and a champion and someone who will fight for us as teachers in the classroom. So can you share about the history of the CTU and its progression into social justice unionism, and particularly the historic 2012 strike that really, I think, put Karlyn on the map for people not only in Chicago but around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Karlyn had been involved in the Chicago Teachers Union from the 90s, from the time that she was at Lane Tech, a large high school, the largest high school in the city, where she became a delegate and then actually became a part of the executive committee of a previous CTU president. And she, I think, enjoyed the delegate work, enjoyed, talking to her colleagues. But I think for Karlyn, at some point, she became a little disillusioned with the union. And so when her final teaching position at King High School, she still was the delegate, but she said even there, she was kind of checked out. And it really wasn't until the core caucus came around, the caucus of rank and file educators, that it reignited her passion to get back involved in union work. And it was because it was a dramatic shift from what unionism had meant before in Chicago, but also nationally, right, in teachers' unions, which moving from pretty much strictly bread and butter issues to a model of social justice unionism, which required developing in struggle relationships with community-based organizations that have been on the ground doing the hard work of trying to improve education for their children for many years, of insisting that teachers' teaching conditions were students' learning conditions, and advocating and bargaining for the common good and for the public good. So that meant not just wages and benefits, but also for affordable housing, because young people and their families needed that. Also for a living wage, because families of children that were coming into schools every day needed that. For air conditioning and new books and all of the things, the conditions that what the CTU would start to call for the things that students deserved. And so that transition also built up a lot of goodwill with communities. Because for a long time, I think it wasn't always as clear what the connection was between the work that the union was doing and people's everyday lives. And that doesn't mean that teachers weren't involved in unions, and particularly I will say Black teachers, because by the mid 80s, Black teachers actually outnumbered white teachers in the Chicago Teachers Union. But it's still in our very, stark political system with a very strong mayoral, leadership, it was a sort of acquiescing to that. So to stand up and fight back against the city and fight for a different vision of education, I think was a big deal. At that time. Would you mind if I just read something real quickly?
Oh, yeah.
To bring in a little bit of her
Please,
voice? Okay.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I want to read something about your point about the strike. I think and I'd imagine if you were in the classroom during this time, you may relate to some of these feelings. So bring yourself back to 2011, 2012, and what folks were facing. You talked about Renaissance 2010. Many of the market-based education policies that would spread nationally were incubated in Chicago. The expansion of charter schools, high stakes testing, high stakes accountability, punitive accountability systems were being incubated in Chicago and then spread through many mechanisms across the country. And so this is what she said leading up to that 2012 strike. In all my 22 years of teaching, I had never seen a climate as hostile to students and educators as the one created by Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of the city of Chicago and former Barack Obama chief of staff, his handpicked school board, and his handpicked CPS leadership team. We wanted what was best for the more than 400,000 school children who were honored to teach and to support, and we were prepared to fight for them. So we went on strike to fight for the type of schools we knew our students deserved. Rahm had told me that 25% of our children would never amount to anything. So why should he give them anything? Well, he picked the wrong fight, and he was about to find out what fighting for that 25% looks like. We were fighting for the heart and soul of public education. There's something to be said about underestimating your opponents. Bullies take joy in knowing that their acts of cowardice are at the expense of people that they see as weaker or inferior to them. Their faith in terror tactics is only shattered when the abused stand up and will take no more. And that's what happened when the members of the strongest teachers union in the country went on strike for 7 days in the fall of 2012. And so I think there's a couple things you feel in that, right? Like her power, right? And this was just her talking, right? Like to be in the front of a room, commanding an audience of educators, commanding a city with a powerful argument, not just for what they were against, but what they were fighting for, and that's her. And yeah, her voice is just powerful. It still gives me chills.
Yeah, not just what they were fighting against, but what they were fighting for. That's really powerful to think about. And in line with this is a sort of a follow-up question. Karen Lewis was instrumental in spearheading the Let Us Teach campaign and thinking about fighting against standardized testing and her organizing work to fight against it. And so can you talk a little bit about her work on Let Us Teach and share some of the background and the story that led to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting involved in campaigns like Let Us Teach was something really important, not again, just to Karen as an individual, but to the entire union at that point and to the core caucus that was running the union. As I was mentioning, these things incubated. And I want to say something about the way that she framed her critique of standardized testing, because I think sometimes people interpret, people pushing back against standardized testing as being opposed to assessment. And she was actually not at all opposed to assessment. She was quite the proponent of formative assessments, right? Assessments that are going to lead to improve, teaching and being clear on what students need in the classroom. It was these top-down, often external tests being imposed upon the entire system, increasingly from the state or federal level, that one, cost a lot of money. And I think that's a really important critique too, because she saw this testing as a tool of corporate capitalism and a tool of the market-based system that was taking over public education, and a tool particularly at that time to sort and punish schools and children. Because this regime of high stakes standardized testing that's coming often at the end of the year, that's not tied in any real way to the actual curriculum being taught within schools or what teachers are bringing to teaching and learning in the classroom, was also happening at a time that schools were being rated and ranked based on test scores. And then whole sets of schools were being closed or turned around based largely on high stakes testing. And so she was really good, and the core caucus and the CTU was really good at putting all those pieces together, right? Not isolating one from the other, but really wrapping all of those things together and explaining that and having conversations with parents so that parents got on board with this once they understood these different pieces.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, Sierra and I were just talking in preparation for this meeting about how hilarious the book is, and Karen is. Her humor is just unmatched. You know, I'm wearing this hoodie that Karen gave me the first time I went to Chicago and got to meet her, and I remember just the uproarious laughter in her office of that time. And it was mostly her cracking jokes about Rahm Emanuel that just had us dying. And the way she could just dress down power and just make them seem so absurd and not powerful, and make us feel powerful with her laughter was such a gift. So I was hoping you could talk about how she used her sense of humor to ridicule the power and bring people together and remind them of their strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, she was the queen of showing that the emperor had no clothes, whoever those emperors were, right? And Rahm Emanuel was certainly a major foe to the Chicago Teachers Union, to the education justice movement. And so he got a brunt of it. But she was she was a funny person generally. She did stand-up comedy at one point, right? And to your point, when you were around her, it was just a natural way that these jokes would sort of, come out, and her humor connected people to her, and it was just a superpower, right? To both dress down power and to make people feel close. And so I'm going to read another little section real quick, just to give a sense of like dressing down power. So in Illinois in around 2016, that era, our governor at the time, or who would become our governor, was a Republican, doing many of the same things that we see the Trump administration doing today, in terms of, we didn't have a budget for several years. He froze money to public services, massive cuts to the public sector. And he became a target of her. His name was Bruce Rauner. And she actually met him years before he became governor. And this was just a couple comments that she had about first meeting him. Okay, so she's talking about, getting ready to meet him. They're sitting in this fancy downtown conference room. Rauner sauntered in, looking every bit of the hedge fund homie that he is. He spent some time discussing his background. He had gone to public school in the suburbs. He sounded like a typical middle-class kid made good. He told me at one point that he supported national board certification, etc. He told me that he didn't believe in communal anything, but that we had something in common. We'd gone to the same school. Now, it was my turn to be incredulous. I knew he hadn't gone to Kenwood, and he couldn't have gone to Mount Holyoke. But not willing to let him get to me, I asked, well, where's that? Dartmouth, he said proudly. That was before I knew he had his name plastered on several buildings. So what class are you? I was doing the math in my head, thinking, he had to be from the class of 68 or 69. And with a straight face, he looked at me and said, class of 78. Now, I was taken aback because I thought he looked so much older than I did. I'm class of 74, right? So this is just her recounting a story, right? But you see the way that she's able to sort of maneuver And I think she used humor as a tool to show the absurdity of things and to show the absurdity of people who took themselves very seriously and also looked down on other people. And I think that was a really important gift. And then the other way I just want to highlight her humor was in her own life, in her own personal life. I mentioned that Karyn ultimately had a brain tumor. This was at an interesting point because after the 2012 strike, in 2014, there was a groundswell of energy to have Karyn run for mayor and to run against Rahm Emanuel. And she was up in the, these polls that folks were running in the summer of 2014. And so she was, out starting to campaign and such. And it was during this some of these informational conversations she was having in different communities that she first realized that she, had this brain tumor and had to have emergency surgery. But in true Karyn form, this is how she talked about that. Give me a moment. On Sunday, October 5th, 2014, I was diagnosed with an aggressive stage 4 brain tumor. That Wednesday, I had an operation to cut it out. My plan to run for mayor was derailed. In a way, I wasn't afraid. I named the tumor Porky because it looked like a pork chop. And it had to go because after all, I'm a Jew and pork isn't kosher. And so I lift this up as an example, I think, of a way that humor both made her closer to other people. It allowed her to critique power. And it was a way that she moved through the world that brought her some peace as well, I think. So we all benefited from the humor, but I think it did something for her too.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, thank you for sharing her humor.
Yeah. And speaking of her humor, one of our audience questions is about if you could share a little bit about her family and knowing more about who she cared for and who cared for her outside of work. One of the things that Jesse and I were laughing about was when she would talk about her husbands in the book and she would talk about how fine they were. We were cracking up. So that's just more of her humor, but also would love to hear more about her family and about her personal life, who she was.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, I think that was I'm so grateful that in our long form conversations, we were able to talk a lot about her personal life and early life, because without that, I wouldn't have had access to those stories and that content to sort of fill in the gaps of the book after she had passed away. But she came from a really interesting family. So I mentioned both her parents were teachers. She had one sister, but her sister was 10 years younger than her. So for a good part of her early childhood, she kind of lived effectively as an only child. And I think she spent a lot of time around older cousins and family members, right? And I think maybe that's where she got a little of that humor and being able to mix it up with the adults as well. She had cousins that she was very close to on both sides of the family. Some of the family was from St. Louis. Other parts of the family were from Oklahoma. She spent some time in both of those places that I think were formative. And she spent time with her family growing up. I think this is interesting, her sort of religious trajectory, which she talks about as well in the book. And she talks about being a kid. Her immediate family was Lutheran, but her grandmothers and were of different denominations. And she would talk about enjoying going to church with her grandparents or other family members, where there was a lot of pomp and circumstance. She said she liked showbiz in her religion. And she also talked about kind of turning away from Christianity, though. And she talked about she could never get with. She talked about never being able to get with big God and little God being Jesus. So she sort of moved away from religion at various times. But it's actually interesting, coming back to religion for her happened around the same time that she came to teaching. And she related those things to each other and said that in the same way that, she was into the Socratic method and questioning and pushing and researching, one of the things, in addition to the pomp and circumstance, that attracted her to Judaism, and she converted to Judaism, not because of marrying anyone or anything like that, on her own volition, was because it was a religion that encouraged asking questions. And that was something very central to who she was as a person. And so she found, peace and comfort there. But to your point about her husbands, baby, she knew her husbands were fine and she let them know. She talked about their dimples,
the Jews
their
love
beautiful
it
brown
when people
skin.
just ask
Oh, she knew it
questions.
and she let them know it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was going to ask you about her conversion to Judaism, but I'm glad you covered that. And I wonder if you might also just talk about uh, her grappling with Israel and Palestine and how she might be understanding what's happening there right now.
Yeah, I think I do want to say I think it was something she really struggled with. And she talks about being a Black Jew generally, um, and that she did in her own Jewish experience. She was in a somewhat multiracial Jewish community, but that she kind of left and came back a few times over, trying to grapple with what it meant, the actions of the state of Israel versus what it meant to be a part of the Jewish faith. And I think she was very clear that she did not believe in apartheid, and she knew that apartheid was wrong, but still had a hard time, I think, navigating that. And at some point, I think made a decision for herself to create a distinction between the state of Israel and her faith as a Jew. But I do think it was something that she grappled with, and she mentions kind of coming and leaving a few times before she was able to find a route through with her faith.
Thank you. Another audience question that's coming up is someone has asked, as a historian, how did you navigate this space between honoring Karen Lewis's voice and also interrogating the broader historical reality and possible myth making of Karen around the events that she described?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So this was a different kind of project for me. Yes, I brought my historical thinking and historical skills. I still had to do a lot of archival research to kind of pull some things up that, weren't in the narrative, or to fact check and to find corroborating evidence on some things. But it was a different project in that this was not an academic historical text or even really a history book. This was Karen's memoir. And I was working on it in service of it being a creative nonfiction project that was written in the first person. And my job then in that way was to tell her story as she told it and as she remembered. And I think that's the thing. I've done oral history work, and it felt akin to that in a certain way, which is about honoring narrator's voice and honoring that the truths that they're telling are their truths. So when I went back and was fact checking, it's not necessarily always fact checking exactly what happened per se. It's fact check, or an interpretation, I should say, of what happened. But like, is the date right in the year that this happened, right? Are you sure that was on that block? Let me take a look at that map. It seems like that it was that type of fact checking. And so then the parts that I was writing, because I did still, one, as much as possible in the entire book, I elevated and used her first person voice, whether that was from our recordings, from things that she had written, and then after she passed away, from her first person writing that she did for the public, from YouTube clips, because she's all over the internet, largely non-published sources, because published sources, and you'll see I did cite published sources, but the non-published sources I was able to weave in to the narrative. But I do think it was a different orientation, and it was actually really fun. Like it was creative nonfiction. There was a greater level of creativity, I think, than when I've written traditional historical texts.
Right on. Well, I have one more question from the audience, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sierra. But this is a good one about what do you understand about Karen now that you didn't understand when the conversation began? What did
That's
you
a good
learn from the
question.
project?
I mean, I learned so much. I'll say, first thing is I feel very privileged to have spent time with her at a moment where I think she was willing to be more vulnerable than she may have been at other times in her life. She was explicit, she had been ill during the time that we were working on this together. About a year or so in, she stepped down from being the president of the CTU. Our interviews happened from places from her office to her home to rehab facilities to ultimately the skilled nursing facility where she spent her last days. And so they were intimate spaces, right? I'm in a rehab facility, or her room where she's in a hospital bed. And so I think in those moments, and because of the nature of the project, I think she was willing to be vulnerable about her personal life, about, feelings about things. Now, I will say she would also sometimes be like, cut the tape, let me tell you something. And those were the best parts, right? Or she'd be like, don't put this in there, but let me tell you something, right? But, I also think, so I guess to answer the question, I learned about her on a personal level. I knew who Karen Lewis, the public figure, was. I knew who Karen Lewis, I should also say, the public figure mediated by the media was. And I feel like I got to know Karen the person more, and she's a fascinating person, right? She's this Renaissance woman. We've talked about all these things she studied, but she was really she threw an Oscars party every year. That was like the big to do, and like decorated for it, and took off the next day of work because they knew they were going to be getting it popping. This weekend she would be getting ready, right? For an Oscars party. She was a big fan of tennis, a big Roger Federer fan. She liked to travel. She took a year off from teaching to pursue an MFA and made a documentary. And the documentary was about her uncle, who had been in the military and I think stationed in Italy at some point in time. And she told her cousin that she thought he had to have some other kids out there. So they were going to trace his path through Italy looking for these other cousins, right? So I think, that part of her, that personal side of her, I think was something unexpected that I certainly didn't know before. And just being to have those, intimate moments with her in that very private space felt very sacred, almost, I'd describe it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and love hearing about all of the different sort of facets of her life. And as we get ready to close out our conversation today and really thinking about the present, about what we are all navigating, what we are all fighting, what we are all resisting, what can we learn from Karen Lewis's life and legacy about social justice unionism, about teaching that we can take into the fight against fascism today?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much, right, about that she has to still teach us about being a Black woman in these fights,
Yes.
about naming and calling out billionaires directly, about attacking income inequality, about connecting struggles across different spaces and being clear again. And I think this was always so important with the work that she was doing, never alone, always with others. That wasn't just naming what they were against, but being clear about what they were fighting for, and an affirmative, forward-looking vision about what a different future would require and would, have. And so I'll actually end with some of her words on this that I think, again, still just resonate so deeply. I was mentioning earlier Bruce Rauner in 2016 and how, in some ways, certainly not the fascist elements, but I would say very clearly the neoliberal turn paved the way for what we're experiencing today, right? The increasing privatization of not just public education, but the public good broadly allowed for private capture of that, allowed for elite capture of that. And so she was fighting back against this slippery slope that we've now found ourselves in, a fully authoritarian governance at the highest levels of governing. And so this is how they were fighting back in the CTU in 2016 against some of those, what I would call precursor elements to what we're experiencing today. And I think it still holds a lot of lessons. So this was in 2016. On April 1st, 2016, a week after we were forced to take a furlough day because of the mayor and governor's austerity budgeting, we joined with thousands of others, took to the streets and marched downtown. Workers in the Fight for 15, the campaign for a living wage, collective bargaining rights, and dignity for workers, public college professors, childcare workers, healthcare workers, other labor unions, community organizations, and Black Lives Matter activists. We believed it was time for us to unite to fight the mayor, the governor, and the billionaires who were united in a Donald Trump-like campaign to turn back the hands of time and progress and destroy public education in our communities. My message at that rally was that we had power when we were all united against our true enemies. And I think this idea, right, of multiracial organizing, of organizing across sectors, of having an affirmative vision of a forward-looking future still speaks so much. And there were also these other things that she would say that I think, again, ring true today. Often Karen would ask 3 questions about how to proceed in a moment and thinking about a strategy. And she would say, does it unite us? Does it build power? And does it make us stronger? And I think those questions are still really important ones. And the other, I think, like rule of threes, the other triplets of questions that she would ask, she actually got from legal civil rights scholar and activist Lonnie Guinier. And I think they speak so strongly to our mode of analysis right now. And those questions are thinking about in any given situation, who are the winners and who are the losers? Who makes the rules to the game? And what are the stories the winners tell the losers to keep them playing the game? And it's that last question, right? About the power of narrative and what it takes to shift narrative, where I feel like she just has so many lessons for us that continue to ring true today.
Oh, we need her voice, but that's why everyone needs to read this book, because it's in her. Her voice is in here, and her insights have been captured so that we can continue the fight in her absence. And just really grateful for all the work you put into this, and looking forward to being part of the struggle with you in the future around educational justice and against the rising fascism. So yeah, it's great to be with you today.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. This was a delight. And thank you to the audience. Y'all had amazing questions. Yeah, thank you. This was a lovely community to be a part of this evening.
Thank you so much. Yes, there's so much still to learn. And thank you so much for capturing her voice and her vision and the humor and the joy alongside the resistance, and how important that is to hold close to our hearts during these times. Thank you to you, Elizabeth, for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you, Jesse, for co-hosting with me. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Matthew, for your always wonderful ASL interpretation and support. Thank you to our team member, Danielle, who is behind the scenes dropping things in the chat for us and making the logistics flow. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We hope that you'll continue to join us for upcoming events. We do have some events that are coming up. And in the meantime, make sure that you check out this book. The book is incredible. It's hilarious. You will be laughing out loud, but you also will be inspired. So please, please, please check out the book. The link for the book is in the chat. It's published by our comrades over at Haymarket Books. If you're interested in more about social justice unionism, please check out our book at Rethinking Schools, Teacher Unions and Social Justice. We have a special discount code for you, TUSJ Study, for 25% off of the book. There are study groups and a newsletter for folks all over the world who really want to engage in the history of and the how-to of social justice unionism. So please, please, please check it out. I hope that you'll join us for some upcoming events. Ours in Education Project, which we co-coordinate with Teaching for Change, is hosting a conversation on March 16th with Mike Africa Jr., Crystal Strong, and then you'll see Jesse again for On a Move, Repairing Histories of State Violence. We hope you'll join us for this event, and all of the links for this will be in the chat, as well as our next conversation at Rethinking Schools will be What's Wrong with AI in Schools. Join us on Thursday, April 9th. For that conversation. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks for being a part of our community. We look forward to staying in touch, and we look forward to being in the continued struggle together.
All right, all right. Now, for people who are unfamiliar with Rethinking Schools, this is one of the main leftist activist organizations that has been pushing critical race theory in schools for a long ass time. They develop critical race theory curriculum that is taught in schools all over the country. They push Black Lives Matter in school. That is like, this is a very far left education organization in which a lot of teachers, not an insignificant amount of teachers in K through 12 schools, are actual like members of Rethinking Schools. They get their curriculum from Rethinking Schools. This, of course, was a talk about the history of one leader of the Chicago Teachers Union. So what we're doing is we're going back and listening to these things to dissect what they've done and what they're going to probably do next. Because when they find a strategy that works, they just keep doing it. That was a lot. Hey, welcome, Lily Dawn, to the shit show that never ends. It explains so much about schools now. Yeah, doesn't it? Because this is not a problem that crept up overnight. This is a problem that has been building over generations. Jesse Hagopian is also responsible for like really popularizing on the well, it didn't come from him, but he's the one that really has been talking about it a lot. The idea of fugitive pedagogy. So the guy you saw on that call, he has actually been zoomed in by teachers in Florida to their classrooms to teach things that are banned in Florida. So how the Florida schools get around Ron DeSantis's Stop Woke Act is that they literally will zoom in people like Jesse Hagopian, and I secretly recorded him saying this explicitly. They'll zoom in Jesse Hagopian into their classroom so that the teacher on the Zoom call is teaching the banned curriculum, not the teachers in the classroom. So then the Florida teachers have plausible deniability. That means all the woke bullshit's still getting taught in Florida. And by the way, did Ron DeSantis know about this? Yes, he did. You want to know how I know? Because when I secretly recorded Jesse Hagopian almost 3 years ago now, saying that at a socialist meeting in Chicago, I sent it to Ron DeSantis's office, and you know what they did about it? Nothing. So woke was never banned in schools in Florida. It was never removed from the curriculum. They just adapted and figured out different ways to do it. That is why we follow organizations like Rethinking Schools to find out what they're doing. Now, guys, we're going to do one more spy stream tonight. Let me change my audio settings because this spy stream is actually being streamed to YouTube, which makes it more convenient. Settings real quick. Boom. Boom. Hang on. All right, audio settings should be fully. Oh, now I'm starting to sound normal again on my end. Oh, now I'm starting to sound normal. On is awesome. Guys, the next spy stream we're going to be watching tonight is a live mass call with the Working Families Party. And it's honestly really convenient that they're streaming this to YouTube, because the Working Families Party used to kick me out of their Zoom meetings before they even really started the meeting. And so it works for me that they're streaming this stuff to YouTube. And look who's on it. Linda Sarsur. We've got Robert Peters, who's a candidate for office, apparently. Tim Hernandez from Indivisible, which is, of course, Indivisible is the No Kings protest. Okay, make your suggestion. I'm open to hearing ideas. Let me know what you have to say. Guys, as a reminder, the only way we can do spy streams publicly like this is if I have the financial support to do it, because spy stream is typically a supporter exclusive event. And we have a channel membership goal today of getting 100 new channel members in order to financially support this work. You're not only supporting the work I'm doing, you're also gifting channel memberships to other people in the community, which I think is just a really nice way to do it. Now, we watched the Working Families Party yesterday on an organizing call they did about a month ago. So you guys should be familiar with the Working Families Party. The Working Families Party is a DSA type group. They're democratic socialists. They do want to overthrow capitalism, but they want to do it through elections and reformism and stuff like that. They are not revolutionary socialists, and that they're not planning on violently overthrowing the government. They're going to do it in other ways. But Indivisible is on this call, which means that the Working Families Party has some sort of connection to the No Kings protest. Now, the No Kings protest is going to be coming up at the end of the month. They are a progressive group. No Kings is not far left. No Kings is a progressive group. They do not want to overthrow capitalism. They get right up to the line, but they don't want to do it. However, there are a lot of far left groups that attach themselves and piggyback on to the No Kings protest because it allows them a ready audience of people to try to recruit and radicalize more people to the cause. Hey, thanks, Jane, so much, W, for the gifted channel membership. I want to thank everyone who donated channel memberships during the last spy stream. But guys, we are getting down to the wire now. We're getting down to the wire. Here is the line in the sand, guys. I have currently 3 spy streams scheduled for next week, okay? I'm pretty sure, I can make every single one of those spy streams public. I can't make every spy stream public, but I can make some of them public. W's in the chat to grill us. 5 channel memberships. Really appreciate it, bro. That's awesome. Thank you, Master Shake. I got it. Okay, I'm pulling it up. Okay, I'll take a look at it after. Thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate you. Let me get this added. Guys, if we do not meet the channel membership goal, I know that people have been super generous lately, and I really do appreciate that. But if we don't meet the channel membership goal, I'm doing only supporter exclusive spy streams next week. And I said this. I said I will show up for you guys as long as you show up for me. Currently, we have you know, rather nice 69 memberships. And I know that no one wants to take away the 69 memberships, but we do need another 31 memberships to meet the membership goal today. What that means roughly is that if 6 people donate 5 channel memberships and then we get another single channel membership, we have met that goal. There are over 200 people watching on YouTube right now. So that should be a relatively easy goal to meet. And Rumble, I'm very sorry if you guys are trying to watch me from Rumble. Like, I don't think the stream is still working there. So if you have to slog over to YouTube from Rumble, I keep trying to add the Rumble stream back. There's something going on between Rumble and StreamYard right now. I don't know what it is. But anyway, we only need 31 more channel memberships. Can we do a rally of channel memberships right now to get us to that goal? Because I'm not fucking around, guys. I said very clearly, I will do Spy Stream as a public option so that everyone can have access to it. I will do it as long as the support keeps coming in. If the support stops coming in, then I'm going to assume that people are just here to be freeloaders, and then I'm going to lock that shit down again. So it really is up to you guys. If you guys want to see at least the 3 Spy Streams next week, be supporter only, then feel free to ignore the channel membership goal. If you want to see them available to the public, feel free to throw in some channel memberships. You can do 1 channel membership for $5. You can do 5 channel memberships for $25. It's not the sun and the moon and the stars. I don't think I'm asking too much. W's to Anthony for the 5 channel memberships. Really appreciate that, bro. Anthony's been donating a lot of channel memberships today. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Guys, if we do not meet the goal by the end of the stream today, then that's all she wrote. And by the way, I am not going to set a channel membership goal tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be kind of a free day. We're going to do a little bit of a lighter content because it's Friday. So I don't set channel membership goals every single day. I do it on the important stream. They're going to start a stream that's just gone live. Right now, so I can still berate you guys and ask you much until you do it. I would love to continue making this stuff public, guys, but listen. I paid $9 for a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts the other day. I know shit's expensive, but I'm not asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars. I'm asking for less money than you guys pay for Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. It's not that big a deal. Yo, we got Kazmar in there. 5 channel memberships, W's. Really appreciate it, Kazmar. You rock. Thank you for being an amazing supporter of the channel. We're up to 79, 21 more. So close. I know we're going to make it. I know you guys are just, it's a weird week, isn't it? Like the weather sucks today. There's like, it's getting cold again where I am. Like, it's just like, I feel like I'm getting sick. My husband brought something home, so inevitably I'm going to get sick, and that's going to be real fun. And so, like, I know it's like a sluggish day. We're going to get there, though. I believe in you guys. I know we can do it. Yeah, if you want to join the channel, you can do that. And if you're watching on your phone, and I know the phone doesn't give the option to do channel memberships, you can send in a super chat and just say in the super chat that you want to allocate it to channel memberships, and I'll do that. I'll accept that. Yo, we got Malcolm in with the W, 5 channel memberships. Thanks so much, Malcolm. You rock. Appreciate it. Look at that, guys. We're so close. 16 more. 1 single person gives 100 channel member, or 100. Well, 100 would be great, but I don't even need that. 1 single person gives 20 channel memberships, and the goal is met. Guys, no one else on the internet is showing you this content. I'm the only person on the internet bringing you inside live leftist organizing calls, showing you what they're saying live in real time as it's happening, showing you the things that they're saying that they don't think people like us are listening to. This is how we know so much about what's going on with the left. This is how we know so much more than every other commentator on the internet. It's how we are light years ahead of everyone. So if you want to see this content continue to be public, gotta support it. I'm completely independently funded.
Good
Ashley!
evening, and welcome to this Working Families Party Mass Call.
I'm quiet now.
I'm Ashley Woodard Henderson. I'm going to be your host for the evening. It is a blessing beyond measure to see all of you live in the chat together again. Y'all, we've been doing sound check and video audio stuff for like the last 30 minutes. Some of y'all been with us waiting in the YouTube channel for 30 minutes. I'm so grateful that each of you are here. I want to invite you to tell a friend, tell your kin to come and join us tonight. Tell the world that you're here on your social media accounts or your group chats. And y'all know how we do. Drop your name, where you're tuning in from in the comments. If you want to shout out an organization, feel free. And for those folks that are tuning in by watching the recording later, hello.
Thanks,
and
Kazmar.
welcome. You know, I desperately hope that the Working Families Party will be your home for making working families even stronger together as we head into the 2026 elections. And On today's call, we're going to talk about how we're navigating these challenging times and winning. You're going to hear from an exciting WFP endorsed candidate for Congress, Robert Peters from Illinois. You're going to hear from movement leaders, Tim Hernandez from Indivisible, and my good friend and comrade, Linda Sarsur.
Comrade.
All of these folks are leading the struggle to combat authoritarianism in this country. So buckle up. We've got some great and really critically important content in store for you tonight. As we always do before we get into it, I want to remind you that our environment is full of disinformation and bots. What's welcome here is working people with diverse opinions. We're going to engage each other by witnessing one another's personal experiences, even when they differ. What we will not tolerate is hate and lies. So if you see any hateful messages in the chat, I just want you to flood the chat with solidarity and other messages of love and positivity. We're going to stay focused on the meaningful work that we came here tonight to do together. Y'all, the last week and a half have been incredibly challenging, to say the least. The US has launched yet another war of choice, and the daily grind of bad news from the home front is hard as ever to take in. So before we get to the speakers and before we do our political education, let's just take a moment, like we always do, to get grounded.
Don't
I
do
invite
it.
you to close your eyes.
W's, bro, thank you.
If you can do so, if you feel safe to do so. A prerequisite for our work is to have some sense of breathing empathy for other people, whether those people are our neighbors or our coworkers, or they live half a world away.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I want you to take a second to feel the air touching your skin. Focus
no
on
deep breathing.
that
I'm going to
point of
talk over you,
connection where
Ashley.
your body ends.
Do not
world
allow her
around you
to
begins.
hypnotize you.
This is that place where empathy lives.
No.
Take a deep breath in.
This is the place where hypnosis and brainwashing lives.
Out through your mouths.
Don't do it. No breathing.
In
Hold your damn breath.
We have a choice. We can run from each other, or we can run to each other. We can wall ourselves in and shut others out, or we can invite others to shelter with us. We can hoard what little we have, or we could share. We could shun community, or we can derive strength from the community around us. Some of us are not so practiced at weathering crisis. Some of us, on the other hand, have been surviving crises day in and day out from our earliest days. We might not even know what it feels like to not have an awareness of an impending crisis playing like white noise in the background of our lives. However you relate to the experience of crisis, one thing's for certain and two things for sure: we are all getting more practiced at navigating political crises in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And with that practice, we gain confidence, we gain courage. We know things are scary. If you came to this call feeling scared, that is logical. But our courage and our confidence grows because we're together. We remind each other that it's still possible to feel hope and fear at the same time, faith in the power of our people, and grieve at the evil that we're witnessing every day. We can laugh and love those around us, even in this time of crisis.
Yeah, it is trauma bonding. Yeah, you're right.
So I want you to take another deep breath and let it out. Feel your heart rate slip.
And while she's doing this meditative brainwashing exercise, I just want to note, guys, normally I don't talk over Spy Stream, but when it's on YouTube like this and I can easily access the recording after, I don't mind talking over it. I can't pause it. This is a live organizing call, but I can add additional color commentary if I feel like it. Okay, don't do the deep breathing though, for real.
We have what we need in our bones, as Mama Naya Watkins used to say, ready for what comes next, good or bad. And when we're ready, we're poised to take real action. We have cleared the panic from our brains. We can see the path ahead more clearly. You and me, all of us together on this call tonight, are called to take action. None of us can unsee the things that we have seen. None of us can unfeel the sense of danger that we know is there, but we can learn to live with it. We can learn to build the resilience together to not only endure, but to build healthy, thriving, and sustainable communities for working people. Take another deep breath in and out through your mouth. And when you're ready, I want you to open your eyes. And I want to welcome you to this beloved community that we're building together.
A beloved community.
We've got work to do, my friend.
On the commune.
So Before we jump into the first conversation tonight, I want to set the stage for what we're going to ask from each of you on this call. You know, we don't just come together to be smarter people, because smarter people don't necessarily a world save. We come together to get our marching orders so we can get our strategies together and then go out into the world and make our dreams come true. So tonight we're inviting you to take 3 steps with us. The first is we're going to make our demands clear, our collective demands clear.
Yeah,
Second,
do that, Ashley.
we're going to show up in the streets together. And third, we're going to build the political power to win. But we're going to just start those 3 steps with the first step. Y'all know that we live in the richest country in the world, but working people are struggling to afford groceries and rent and healthcare, while billionaires pay less in taxes than our teachers. Prices keep rising, wages stay flat, and too many politicians look the other way. I don't know about you, but I'm trying to be done with that. I think y'all are trying to be done with it too. Working people should not be begging for scraps. We are making clear demands for what our families need and what our families deserve. You deserve a home you can afford, healthcare you can rely on, time to spend with your family, and a job that is meaningful to you and provides what you need to thrive. So the first thing that we're asking everyone on this call to do tonight is to sign the Willing to Fight pledge. I want you to take a moment right now and go to willingtofight.org.
Okay,
Again,
I'll think about
I want you to take a second right now on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever you use to access the internet. And I want you to pull up the browser and I want you to go to willingtofight.org.
W Liberty,
Add your
thank
name
you.
and stand rise with thousands of other working people who are ready to fight for a country that works for all of us. If you want all of tonight's actions sent to your phone after the call, you can also text mass call to 30403 and we'll send them your way. When you've signed that pledge, when you've gone to willingtofight.org, I want you to drop signed in the chat. So again, you go to willingtofight.org, and once you have signed the pledge, I want you to drop signed in the chat. Now, this is the time in our call when we do some political education to talk strategy and to make meaning and sense of what's going on.
Jenny
in the world.
over on
So
Rumble,
let's dig
thank
in.
you.
We're going to start by reviewing some of the things from our past sessions. And for folks
Rumble's
who are like,
working
man, that's
now.
repetitive, you talked about this over the last few calls. We do it every time so that we don't leave anybody new behind. Y'all know that this is a political crisis that we're living in the United States. Authoritarians have taken over the Republican Party. The Democratic Party, on the other hand, is largely under the control of corporate power. Working class people across race and across region are leaving the Democratic Party in droves. And the 2-party system makes it really hard to imagine that there could be an alternative. This political crisis is nested inside of a bigger crisis. The world is going through huge technological, economic, and cultural shifts.
Thank you, Devil Bunny.
Earlier in our mass calls, we met this guy, Antonio Gramsci. He was a movement leader who lived in another time of crisis, the 1920s and 30s. He described it as a time in which the old social order was breaking down, but there was nothing quite yet ready to replace it. If you've tuned in over the years that we've been doing these mass calls, you will remember this picture. We are actually being hit by a series of converging, consolidating, and conflating crises. We're seeing this play out in disruptions to our daily lives through mass protests and reactionary movements that have gained increasing political power around the globe, not just here in our country. One of these crises hits particularly hard right now, the changing role of the U.S. in the world. The United States is leaving behind a long period as the planet's technological and industrial center. For much of that time, we were also the unrivaled political superpower. At the very least, we're now living in a multipolar world. There are other rising powers that be who are matching and increasingly exceeding U.S. technological, economic, and military dominance. When we understand this, when we understand imperialism, we start to understand U.S. military adventurism in a new light. We're not engaging in wars of choice because we're on the rise. We're in these wars of choice because those in power have fewer and fewer tools to prevent decline. They're attempting to consolidate and increase their own wealth and power. Of course, these conditions existed before Donald Trump blew into office, or even before he took office his first term. But let's be honest, he is accelerating, right? Authoritarianism is moving quite quickly in this country. So in a previous session, we talked about what the average person thinks of when we think about politics or when we say the word politics. There's a red team that's led by Donald Trump, I would say led by Stephen Miller. And there's a blue team that's led by leaders of the Democrats in Congress,
He did
as well
it.
as maybe a few
Thank
who are making
you.
noises about running for president. Both teams are
Thank you,
engaged
Virgo
in their
Moon
own
W.
forms of crisis management right now. The Democrats are using symbolic inclusion to hide the fact that they're not doing anything to redistribute power or wealth in any real, meaningful, or tangible way. They're campaigning on a return to normalcy. Even their take on affordability is usually nothing more than a message of remember when things cost less before Trump messed it up. That is not an argument that's going to lead to any comprehensive policy shifts that we can feel that improve our conditions or that change structures of the economy or the politics of this place while these folks are in office. The reason that they're soft pedaling this, in my opinion, is because they have a lot riding on maintaining good relationships with sections of organized capital who actually fund their campaigns. I have a feeling we're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. On the Republican side, it's just more culture wars, us versus them, coercion, cozying up with their sections of organized capital. The Democrats have a problem. In these crisis conditions on this political map, they're running out of moves to make. The voter coalition that they rely on is falling apart. It's becoming more and more geographically isolated. So sure, we're all hopeful in their ability to reverse the decline, at least temporarily, in relationship to the midterm elections. Most of us are going to do everything we can do, all the work necessary and possible to elect Democrats this year, because we understand the dangerous stakes of allowing one-party Republican rule to continue. But on the longer term horizon, Democrats really do have a problem. They have been losing working class voters from their voter coalition for decades. It started with working class white voters, but it's not stopping there. Their efforts to construct a voter coalition resemble trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. This is where you start hearing there's a hole in the bucket in your head. So let's talk about working class people for a second. In particular, let's talk about how we've experienced these crises over the last few years. And y'all, it's been a roller coaster. Let's travel back in time and first talk about the fact that there was a neoliberal revolution that really started to pick up speed in the 1970s. The people in government, Republicans and Democrats, and the people who owned industry decided that working people in the US had too much power. The post-World War II boom was slowing down. The companies were making less than the record profits that they had become used to. They didn't like that we had managed to win living wages and retirement plans through our unions and by passing laws. So businesses and their allies in government decided to change the game. They institutionalized a political philosophy called neoliberalism. This kicked off a one-sided class war.
Neoliberalism is capitalism.
People. They closed factories. They moved production overseas. They privatized our public services. They turned everything from our food and water systems to mortgages, healthcare, rental housing into commodities that they could be trading on the stock market. Our wages stagnated, but they told us it was okay because we'd be able to buy cheap shit to make up for it. But the wheels came off the system in the financial crisis. Y'all remember all those mortgages had gotten bundled up into these risky financial instruments. Those financial instruments fell apart. The bubble burst, bringing down several global banks. And the major banks that didn't fail got bailouts from the US government. But who was left holding the bag? We were. Y'all know people who lost their homes, lost their jobs. Many, many working class people have still not recovered the wealth that was stolen from them in this period of time. But on the bright side, it was also a moment where it looked like we were really starting to question this neoliberal model, which had gotten us into this mess in the first place. And then came along COVID. So many people died. Jobs were lost. But incredibly, we also saw what people said was impossible become possible because it always had been. The government could do something to help working people if they wanted to. We saw a massive expansion of the social safety net and direct stimulus to struggling workers. We saw the expansion of healthcare, the same healthcare that Republicans just clawed back from us in this last fight over the Affordable Care Act. For a brief moment, US poverty rates actually went down, not just a little bit, but dramatically. This also began a period of inflation. Those cheap prices that had been part of the bargain with neoliberalism were taken away from us too. But now the good paying jobs were gone or being threatened by new technologies and cost cutting. So now we find ourselves in an authoritarian crisis. The high prices are still with us, and unfortunately, the cure those in power are offering for the problems of neoliberalism may be worse than the disease itself. It remains to be seen whether this will be a moment for us to build broad-based working class power. And that, my friends, is up to every single one of us on this call. Let's wrap up this discussion of the crisis by understanding these words from Milton Friedman. Now, I want to be honest, this man was definitely not our friend, but he was pretty smart. He was one of the key architects of that neoliberal revolution that we're talking about tonight. He understood the importance of us using crises to advance an agenda. He certainly used crisis to advance his. He says it here in this quote: crisis produces the opening for change, and it's our job to keep certain ideas alive until they not only become politically possible, they become politically inevitable. To make any of this possible, to be able to make any advances in this period of crisis, we have so much work to do, my friends. So let's take a look at the political map of the United States again. There are several layers to what's going on here. The first layer is that we've got to organize our people, the individuals and organizations that make up the left and progressive ecosystem. We need a shared strategy and a shared plan. And central to that plan is reaching beyond ourselves to organize more working class people across race and region to be a part of our movement, to be a part of a movement that is their inheritance, to belong to community that is their people. We need to create a new center of gravity on this map, my friends, which is different from either the Republicans or the Democrats. But we're in a moment of authoritarian crisis, and our elections are still largely defined by a winner-take-all two-party system. So we need to be organizing ourselves into a broad front with lots of people who share the goal of blocking the MAGA movement, even if we agree on little else. Our stance in this broad front should not and cannot be quiet obedience, though. We need to be struggling internally for influence over the strategy and the direction of that broad front. We need to lift up our candidates. We need to raise our own money. We need to organize our own people. This will give us power within that broad front. So WFP's election strategy is quite simple in 2026. We're going to take back Congress, and we're going to set ourselves up for 2028. And I'd be lying if I didn't say there was some complexity, right? We've got to organize working class people and create a real power block on the political map, and that requires work. Doing this gives us influence in a broad front against authoritarianism, and it helps us change the political map for the long term, not just for one cycle. Good people, you've heard the strategy. We're not hiding our cards here, and you know that in every long arc, there are key moments when it's all hands on deck. The second step we're asking people to take tonight, I told you the first. The second step we're asking people to take tonight is to show up together. There are moments in history when we have to do two things at the same time. We have to block what is harming our communities, and we have to build the power to win something better. Right now, we're in one of those moments. This administration wants to spend billions of your tax dollars on nonsense wars. They're terrorizing neighborhoods. They're separating families. They're carrying out violence in broad daylight in our communities while working people struggle to afford the basics. We're not going to stay quiet while that happens. This right now is the moment when we show our size and we show our strength. Across the country, millions of people are preparing to step into the streets under one clear message: no kings. And I just want to ask you to be a part of it. I want you to go to nokings.org and find an action near you. I want you to make a plan to show up. And if you go and you see that map and you don't see somebody already planning something, I want you to step up and host. Before you go there, because I know some of my skeptic comrades on the call are going to go there, we're not just protesting and going home. When we show up in the streets, when we mobilize, we bring that energy back into our towns, back into our hollers and hoods, back into the city, back into our neighborhoods. We turn it into organizing. We turn it into training and skill sharing. We turn it into making organized demands with a consequence. We turn it into mutual aid. We turn it into party building. And we turn it into plans for how working people take power back where it belongs, in the hands of the people who actually make this country run. If you want the links to all of tonight's actions sent to your phone after the call, You can text mass call to 30403 and we're going to send them to you. And if you're planning to show up at a No Kings action, I want you to drop No Kings in the chat. When millions of us step into the streets together, the whole entire country, in fact, the whole entire world sees what real power looks like. Showing our strength in the streets matters, y'all. Sustaining that energy, building it up like a snowball, building on that momentum throughout the rest of that year is going to be so critical to what goes down in the fall come election season. This next step is turning that energy into organized power that we can use to win. So I want you to go to nokings.org. I want you to sign up for an event, join an action near you with Working Families Power, with Indivisible, with anybody that rocks with the No Kings Coalition. And once you've signed up to be at No Kings where you are, I want you to put No Kings in the chat. If you're hosting, tell me you're hosting as well. All right, y'all, I have spoken enough. I want to next bring up our first speaker, my friend, my brother, my comrade, my party leader, the one and only Maurice Mitchell, the national director of the Working Families Party. Mo, tell us the good word.
Oh, thank you, Ash. And thank you always for grounding us in our history, grounding us in our bodies, and also giving us our assignment. Thank you so much for your leadership and your prophetic voice. In a little bit, we're gonna be hearing from an exciting WP candidate from Chicago, Robert Peters, who's running in the 2nd District of Illinois for Congress. He is in a major fight against the powers that be and the combined forces of AIPAC, the crypto lobby, and the AI lobby, which are all spending millions to defeat him. We're also going to be hearing from Tim Hernandez from Indivisible, who is here to tell us all about the No Kings mobilizations that Ash just mentioned that will be happening all over the country on March 28th. And we're going to hear from a movement leader and a friend and longtime comrade of mine, Linda Sarsur, who will help us make meaning of this moment that we find ourselves in. Now, I can't wait to hear from all of these folks, and I hope you stick around to hear from each and every one of them. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they're told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, or failures. Claim no easy victories. I often reflect on these words by Amilcar Cabral. They were a directive to the leaders of his party who were at the time engaged in revolutionary struggle against the Portuguese colonizers of Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. The Portuguese had already occupied Cabral's people and his country for more than 300 years, close to 400 years by the time he wrote those words in 1965. In this moment of extreme authoritarian crisis and war that we find ourselves in this period of arrogance, of hubris, of imperial overreach by our country in places all over the globe, it is more important than ever to re-ground ourselves in the clarifying direction from somebody like Cabral. See, Cabral is now known as one of the leading lights of liberation movements all over the world, and certainly African liberation. But under Portuguese rule, it was not like that was a paying job, right? So instead, he worked as an agricultural engineer, traveling to every corner of his country, meeting with and learning from farmers and learning from folks that work in industry and learning from various communities and various ethnicities all throughout his country. Which is why today, I want to talk about smugness. As Ash pointed out in the political education session, this moment calls on us to both build our own cohesion and power as a movement, while at the same time finding common cause in a broad anti-authoritarian front with people who are anything but our friends. In my role, I'm constantly talking to people. I'm meeting with leaders of our state parties at the Working Families Party. I'm meeting with prospective and current elected officials who are Working Families champions. I'm knocking on doors and talking to people and facing them in their communities. I'm speaking with members of Congress sometimes. Sometimes I'm speaking to the press. My job has me crisscrossing the country. Now, it is a calling. I'm grateful for it. And ultimately, all of those conversations across so many different dimensions grounds me in my humility and reminds me how critical it is to remain humble. It reminds me that I am ultimately, at the end of the day, the son of two humble immigrants that came to this country trying to make a better life. The grandson of a domestic worker that came here with literally nothing. I am ultimately the son of those two people, the brother of a number of folks that I still call the closest people to me, a partner, a friend, a colleague. I'm many things, but ultimately, I am no better or worse than anybody else trying to live this human condition. Many of the people one meets in this world of electoral politics are anything but humble. In fact, in the very entrepreneurial political culture we have in this country, where almost anyone, especially if they come from money and privilege, can look in the mirror on any given day and decide, you know what, I'm gonna run for office. It almost seems like a lack of humility is a prerequisite for the job of elected official. In these political waters, there are so many sort of political sharks that we're swimming amongst. And there's so many political sharks that they just count electoral victories like they're notches on their belts. They feel like they put in their dues and therefore it's time to go through the revolving door and cash in, to make big money, to become electoral consultants, to become electoral mercenaries. Yeah, elections are big business. It's a marketplace. Now, if I'm being honest, if I'm to tell no lies, then I have to say that we too can lose our grounding in humility if we're not careful. We can also realize that when we learn how to swim amongst these sharks, we might become them if we're not careful. We're in shark-infested waters. We're swimming in politics alongside those AI and crypto and APAC corporate-inspired consultants and elected officials. And if we're not careful, we might become way too much like them. We could start by puffing our own chest and believing our own hype and believing our own spin. We can become a little too smug, a little too comfortable. For me, it boils down to a simple question. Who are we doing this work for and with? Are we doing it because deep down we're insecure and we want to prove that we have power? Do we seek to be the smartest people in the room? Do we seek to be the most pure and most progressive person in a burning and dying and decaying country and society? Or do we seek to be in arms with working people here and everywhere around the country and around the world to build a new society, to struggle together, to build something new? In short, are we doing politics because we have something to prove to ourselves or to prove to the political class? Or do we have something to prove with the people? You may ask me why, if this is the water one has to swim in, these shark-infested political waters, why even do politics? And the answer is simple, because politics is one of the few ways that we collectively as people can govern ourselves and govern this society. And only by governing, by controlling the government, can we enact change that our communities need at the scale that it requires. So we also need our own smarter than anyone else political operatives, but on our team. We also need the political infrastructure, but for the people. We also need those candidates and elected officials that are willing to do the business, but the business not of business and corporations, the business of the people. So in this work of building our own political party, one that we could control and own, it means that we must always be organizing, right? And we need to guard against this smugness through organizing, because the antidote to this smugness, the way that we protect ourselves from swimming in these political waters and becoming the sharks, is grounding ourselves every single day with the interests of everyday people, which is why today I continue to knock on doors. I continue to face working people. And we always have to have the practice where we're organizing. We're always organizing. And look, if you hit those doors and you aren't sincere and you don't listen and you don't show compassion, that door will slam right in your face. And that is the greatest rebuke to the smugness of the political class.
Okay. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna turn Maurice's volume down for a second, because we got some people who aren't fucking listening. They do not only have 5 people. Virgo Moon, I appreciate the support you've given the channel. They do not only have 5 people. They win local elections. They get people elected to local office in Philadelphia and New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, and they are working on expanding that nationally. And I've seen more than a few people in the chat. And Woody, I'm going to call you out. Are you fucking serious? He's just here for the dick. We are watching a live socialist organizing call, and conservative retards are in my chat going, they're just here to get laid. Like, literally, fuck off. Either take this seriously or leave. They're in more than 5 locations. Whatever you're looking at is not correct. We literally just watched these people yesterday. They literally get people elected to local fucking office. God, what do I have to do to get you people to take this fucking seriously?
Valuable. They are important. It means taking the time to bring others along and not moving so fast that we execute a smart set of tactics.
Yeah, this is why this is usually only subscriber only.
The test of this will come on election night. Will people have a sense of, we did this, we won this election, this was a people's victory? Or will they have a sense of, that was y'all? When I talk about the Working Families Party, I never want to hear people say, thank you, Working Families Party, y'all did that. That means we missed the mark. That means our organizing wasn't relational. Our organizing wasn't humble enough that people felt connected, so that when the Working Families Party wins, we win. The Working Families Party and our movement ultimately is a big, ever-growing we. I know what I want people to be saying on election night. I want them to own those victories and to fight for those victories and defend those victories. Will you join me in building the party that makes that possible? Thank you.
I mean, you heard him. The doors of the party are open.
All right. Well,
and we
Virgo
hope
Moon,
you
I appreciate
join.
that.
I hope that we have earned your membership.
Thank you.
I want to build the political party of our dreams and the governance structure of our dreams that our people have always deserved with each and every one of you. Before I bring up our next speaker, I want to connect what Mo said to the actions that we're asking people to take tonight. You heard Mo talk about the need to always be organizing. He often talks about it like addition. We need to always be growing the number of us that are bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice. And the first 2 actions tonight are exactly about that. Signing the Willing to Fight pledge at willingtofight.org is making our demands clear and saying that working people are done settling for scraps. Second, finding a No Kings action near you at nokings.org helps you show up and show out in defense of our communities. That's how we show our size and our strength in the streets. So if you want the links to both of those actions sent directly to your phone after this call, you can text mass call to 30403 and we're going to send them your way. Now we're going to hear from someone who represents what it looks like when working people organize that energy into real political power. On these calls, you know we love to introduce you to exciting WFP candidates who have answered the call to serve a purpose bigger than themselves. The next candidate is one of those people. Before running for Congress, he served as a state senator in Illinois, and he also was the political director of the People's Lobby in Chicago. It's an organization that was founded after that 2008 financial crisis that we talked about earlier. And it was created in order to combine the work of grassroots community organizing and focused work to support people's candidates. All of this is to say that Robert Peters is a people's champion, and we are so delighted to have him here with us tonight. Robert, welcome.
Thank you, Ash, and thank you, WFP and Maurice. Just literally some of the most moving words.
Yes,
Anytime
very moving.
Gramsci's dropped in a meeting, it warms my heart and warms my soul. I'm running for Congress in the Illinois 2nd, and the Illinois 2nd is a unique district. It's one of the most working class Black districts we have in the country. We have people, 40% of folks who are on Medicaid. 30 to 40,000 people are on SNAP benefits, or on the verge of losing SNAP benefits. 40 to 50% of people's income, limited income, goes to pay for property taxes. They're literally struggling to get by. And when I think about this crisis, it doesn't begin with Donald Trump. It begins years before that. I was born hard of hearing. I developed a speech impediment. My biological mom was addicted to drugs. I was put up for adoption. And then the mom who adopted me herself struggled with addiction. She had mental health issues. She became an alcoholic. And I grew up with a strong community. I had neighbors who had a door open during a time of need. They had a bed for me. They had a couch for me. They had this space for me, this sort of sense of a village. And over the last 30 to 40 years, we have seen the destruction of this village. We've seen massive disinvestment, more and more people feeling isolated, alone, and alienated. And so when we look at the 2nd Congressional District, we see a place that had some of the highest rates of foreclosure during the Great Recession, followed by some of the highest rates of evictions, schools that were closed, hospitals that were closed, infrastructure that broke down, and people feeling alienated, isolated, and left alone. And so I'm running for Congress because I want to undo that. I want to fight back against Trump, and I want to fight back to what led us to Trumpism as we know it. We need people who can organize, who have a vision. It says in the book of Proverbs, without a vision, the people will perish. We need a party, the Democratic Party or whatever it might be, to be able to present a vision against this reaction. We're the richest, most powerful country in the history of the planet. We should be able to guarantee people health care. We should be able to guarantee people good housing. We should guarantee people a secure retirement. We should guarantee people safety, comfort, and dignity.
Let's talk about this
That's
after,
the
okay?
fight. The fight isn't just about Trump. It's about all these conditions that led us here. I've been a state senator for 6 years, and I was a community organizer before that. I helped start the Coalition to End Money Bond. I helped carry the bill. I was the lead sponsor of carrying the bill to end cash bail in Illinois. I was able to defend it. I did that in movement. And we need people with deep relationships to movement. But we are in a very serious crisis with 3 days left in this election. AIPAC, AI, and crypto have now gotten involved in this race. $4.5 million from AIPAC, $1 million from AI, another $1 million from crypto just to attack me. The reason why they're attacking my candidacy and they're attacking me is because they know that I have a history, a track record of standing up for Palestinian human rights. They know I have a track record of going after tech bros and trying to hold them accountable. They know I have a history and a record of fighting back against crypto corruption. They want to make Illinois a test case for how they can bring in MAGA money to buy up elections and take a working class Black seat. It is important for us to organize, to build power, driven by organizing people, to push back against this billionaire
Working class
spending.
means socialist.
This is a deep crisis. I believe Illinois, too, is a bellwether. Now, there are some other campaigns, some other districts to the north of me in Illinois 9 that has gotten a lot of attention. But I think if we want to talk about where we're at as a country, where we're at in terms of an opposition party, Illinois 2 really stands as that bellwether. Are we going to allow billionaires with deep relationships to MAGA, deep relationships to the war machine, deep relationships to Silicon?
But Master Shake, I would argue that they're way more obsessed with defeating the Democrats than they are the Republicans at this point, because the Democrats are their main enemy.
Who have made commitments that
but they
allow
frame it in terms
people
of Trump.
to
You're right about
continue
that.
their corruption and their destruction? Or are we going to reject that? Are we going to organize to put someone and put people in positions of power that says the working class must be front and center? And so that's why I'm running for Congress. It's to defeat where we're at, defeat these enemies and this level of reaction, and to build power that says working class Black communities, working class communities should thrive. They should be invested in. And instead of sending billions of dollars overseas or billions to other people, let's put that in our communities so that our communities can thrive. So I'm so grateful for everybody at WFP. I'm so grateful to be in this movement as someone who organizes in this space. And I say this as a state senator, as a candidate for Congress. At the end of the day, I'm an organizer in this movement. And so I'm not going to necessarily walk in front of everybody because I may not lead. I'm not going to walk behind everybody. I'm going to walk side by side with everybody in solidarity. So thank you.
Solidarity,
Robert, we
comrade.
love you. We are cheering you on. We will do what it takes to see this thing done.
No, they don't. These people
Y'all,
do not.
the last
Master
step.
Shake. These people are specifically having a call about the Democrats not winning. They are running against the Democrats. That is not correct at all. They're literally forming a competing party for the Democrats, bro. To say they want the Democrats to win is absurd. The whole first part of this presentation was about defeating the Democrats. They're not taking over the Democrats. They're forming a different party to defeat the Democrats.
Robert, leaders who actually fight for working people, leaders who are not afraid to stand up and fight back, to show up and show out, especially in the faces of the billionaires and corporations that are making life harder for our families. But building that kind of leadership takes every single one of us. So tonight, again, we are inviting you to take the Dialed In pledge. This pledge is about stepping up to help build the party that working people deserve. That could mean making phone calls from your house. That can mean knocking on doors in the neighborhood. That could mean organizing in your community or helping elect working families champions across the country. Because when we organize together, we don't just protest the injustice, we build the power to replace the folks that are creating the injustice. So I want you to take a moment right now. We're going to drop the link in the chat. I want you to go to wfpus.org/dialed-in. Again, wfpus.org/dialed-in. That's where you're going to go to sign the pledge. Or if it's easier, you can pull out your phone and you can text dialed in to 30403, and we'll send you the link and ways that you can get involved. Again, you can either go to wfpus.org/dialed-in, or you can text dialed in, 2 words, dialed in to 30403, and we'll send you the link and the ways that you can get involved. Oh, and by the way, if you are in the Chicago area or can get to the Chicago area, Robert has an in-person canvas going out on Saturday at noon. Again, if you are in Chicago, if you know folks in Chicago, or if you can get to Chicago, Saturday at noon, we're hitting the streets. If you want to join, you can follow the link that we're dropping in the chat. We need you to go and participate in Robert Peters' in-person canvas this Saturday at noon. And wait, I feel like I'm forgetting something else. I feel like there's something really important that's coming this month. I think it's going to be
No Kings
on March 28th.
Yeah.
I think maybe I've even mentioned it. It's this little thing called No Kings 3. Curious if you've heard about it. Is it on your calendar? Are you hosting? Are you attending?
yeah.
Let me know in the chat. Am I going to see you
It's on our calendar
at a No Kings event? Because you know I'm going to be there, my friends. And I am so excited that here to talk to us about why we should find a No Kings event near us is our brother, Tim Hernandez, who's throwing down with our friends at Indivisible. Tim, take it away.
Thank you so much for that, Ash. I appreciate it. Thank you all for having me in space here too. I appreciate that as well. I just want to open and say, we're in the same fight, y'all. And I don't mean that as a mere pleasantry. I mean, organizationally, tactically, in terms of what we believe and our understanding of how power actually gets built. I know it's been said a bit, but I want to affirm that this administration is governing through fear. It is deliberate and it is strategic. Mass agents in our neighborhoods, families being torn apart, parents afraid to take their kids to school. And at the same time, the cost of groceries, housing, and if you can even afford to think about it, healthcare, are all things crushing working people who are already stretched too thin. And now we have an unauthorized war in Iran. All of it together, the raids, the costs, the war, none of that is a coincidence. That is their plan: destabilize, exhaust, divide, and hope that we're too worn down to fight back. We are not too worn down. And No Kings is the proof of that. What happens on March 28th matters. And what happens after it matters too. Showing up in the streets is how we prove to ourselves and to each other that this collective power exists, that there are enough of us, that we are organized, and that we cannot be ignored. but it's the beginning of what can be. What we do with that energy, how we channel it, how we sustain it, that is the work you all are already doing. No Kings demonstrates our collective power and resolve. You help determine what comes next. And look, here's what I'll be honest about. This work is heavy. The scale of what this administration is doing, the pace of it, it's designed to be overwhelming. But contrast that with what's actually happening on the ground right now. People are not sitting this out. We're just 16 days out from March 28th, and we're already at the total number of events we had all across October. That's not despite the moment we're in. That's because of it. When people show up together,
They always
disciplined,
have.
nonviolent, in numbers,
I don't know why you're
fear
doing this right
loses
now,
its
and it
grip.
really pisses me off. I feel like
That
you're
is
trying
history,
to
and we're living
intentionally
it right
confuse
now.
people.
What happens when a crowd gathers and people look around and realize that everyone standing next to them felt that same isolation, that same dread, and even that same anger, and showed up anyway? That's when something shifts. That is exactly what this administration does not want. They are counting on us feeling alone. Every event, every person on the street on March 28th is a direct answer to that. Now, you may have heard this adage before, but I want to name it because it's key to our movement. Courage is contagious. When people show up, it gives other people permission to move. We've seen it after every mobilization. People in positions of power, in institutions, in their own communities, feel emboldened to push back because of what has happened in the streets. That's not a side effect.
He is.
That is the
That's the
point.
fucking problem right there. That's exactly
Events
right.
are happening in every corner of this country. Major cities, small towns, places people said nothing like this could happen. The coalition has built real infrastructure to support host, safety and de-escalation trainings, media prep, toolkits, and more. If you have the capacity to host, we will support you. The people who've hosted these events will tell you, it changes something in your community. People show up and they find each other. That connection doesn't end when our events do. And if hosting isn't where you are right now, show up. Bring your friends, your family, your coworkers. Ask folks how they're feeling, and then invite them to make it known. This is an all hands on deck moment for us. The breath of who's in the streets on March 28th sends a message, and we need you in that. So as Ash has said, go to nokings.org, find an event, sign up to host. Let's be out there together. I look forward to seeing you in the streets and making our collective power known.
Y'all show some love to Tim. I see
They
all the
need
Indivisible
them.
fam in the chat. We're so excited that you're here on the WFP.
Indivisible needs groups like the Working Families Party because they want to have a record-breaking turnout for their protest. So they are willing to work with any group that can turn people out for their protest. The Working Families Party wants to go to their protest because they want to recruit and radicalize more people to the far left and away from the Democratic Party. So it is a win-win scenario for both of them. The highest priority that Indivisible has right now is getting 9 million people out for the No Kings protest. That's a freaking tall order, man. It's in March. It's still cold. It might be winter in some areas. They want to have another record-breaking turnout event. So they are going to work with any group that they can work with to get people to turn out to their protests. And people like the Working Families Party or the DSA or the Revolutionary Communists of America or Socialist Alternative or Freedom Road Socialist Organization or literally any of the other far left groups or Antifa will take advantage of the fact that there's going to be a lot of lefty people getting together in one day. They're going to go hand out propaganda, literature, try to get people into their organization, try to get people into their events, things like that. So they need each other right now, but don't make any mistake. They are not working towards the same goal. Indivisible is working towards a very different goal than the Working Families Party, which is working towards a very different goal than Antifa. It's just a convenient kind of like convergence where it is beneficial for all of these groups to be in the same place on the same day.
And support an event. We've come to our final speaker for the evening, and she is someone who knows the meaning of the word struggle.
No, they're not,
She
bro.
knows the
No,
meaning
wrong.
of the
Stop
word
fucking lying.
fight.
Stop
She knows the
spewing
meaning of
conservative
the word
bullshit in my chat. We
solidarity, and
know
she
when
demonstrates
Master
her
Shake,
knowledge.
we know when you're listening to conservative influencers because you say absurdly ridiculous things in the chat. Please cut it out. Please. They talk about the Democrats way more than they talk about the Republicans. Had you been on the stream yesterday, you would have heard that.
And I'm lucky to get to be her comrade.
Now, can we please listen?
Y'all, she really needs no introduction. Her name is Linda Sarsur. We're living in terrifying times globally, and the fight at home is never easy. But Linda has been on the front lines of this fight wherever it is. Every front line you can think of, every bit of geography you can think of. And we want to invite her to speak into our beloved community the things that are on her heart this evening. So, Linda, my love, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you so much, Ash, and thank you to our beloved family at the Working Families Party, and Robert and Tim. Just grateful to live in a world where all of you exist and where all of you are showing up in your full selves. I just wanted to say, Ash, to a lot of folks, I watch social media often and see a lot of people feeling a lot of helplessness, a lot of hopelessness. I see people really, sometimes we're enraged, sometimes we're sad. There's just so much things happening. People are overconsumed by the algorithm, by the news that comes out every day. Whether it's, watching what's happening right now that's unfolding in Temple, Israel, and West Bloomfield, Michigan, or we're watching what's happening across this country with ICE raids and literally ones you hear about and ones you don't hear about, or a war in Iran right now, as you all know, multiple bombings happening across many countries that my family is connected to. I'm watching the death toll rise in places like Lebanon and Gaza, and it just goes on and on and on. And I just want to remind people that we've lived through these moments before, and I know that it feels different. We kind of focus oftentimes on this fascist that's in the White House and the minions that are around him, who are just more kind of overt with their fascism. But we lived this before. I lived through many things in my lifetime, and many of you have as well. I've lived through global pandemics. I've lived through multiple wars. I've lived through, the creation of ICE. That was our generation. We watched ICE get created in 2003. I lived through the horrific attacks of 9/11. I watched Muslim men get kidnapped in my community by agencies that weren't called ICE before ICE was created. I've watched nonprofits get shut down by the government, and that was in our lifetime because they didn't agree or because those groups were building true power, and the government targeted them and shut them down. And of course, they have reopened and recalibrated and into new things, but it happened before, and it happened before even our generation. COINTELPRO, we watched multiple wars over decades. So I just want to remind people that our people before us survived, and we're going to survive this. And the way that our people survived this before is you just got to continue to stay focused. Fascism is not just about the violence, it's about the distraction. It's about making you believe that you can't do anything about it, that you are just going to have to either wait this out or you're just going to have to stay in a survival mode. I'm not trying to be in survival mode. I want to live in a world where I can thrive and my family can thrive. From the last time many people have seen me, I became a grandma. My renewed purpose in life is that I have a baby granddaughter named after me. And that's what I'm building for. It's not just about me, it's about building for the next generations to come. And there's much more to come, and so much organizing that is happening. And, right now, all eyes on No Kings 3 on March 28th, which is one of the reasons why we haven't spoken about what we hope comes after in partnership with friends at No Kings 3 and beyond that, this is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. This is quote unquote America's birthday. And the question historically is going to be, what were we doing on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence? What is our generation building? And as we know with the Declaration of Independence, really what it was a bunch of white guys 250 years ago who sat around and developed a document they called the Declaration of Independence.
White
and
guys
the question is, can we build something different? Do we have the audacity to sit around and say that we want to build a document that is our values and our principles and bring millions of Americans around it and say to them, put the politics to the side, put the political parties to the side. Do you want to be safe? Do you want to be secure? Do you want to live with dignity? Do you want your children to be able to go to schools without having to fear either getting shot or kidnapped by a law enforcement agency? Do you just want to have a living wage? No, I want you to have better than a living wage. I want you to have a wage where you can live comfortably with your family. those are universal principles that I believe most Americans agree with. So I'm excited. There are days where I feel overwhelmed, and then there are days where I feel hope because I see people on the streets. I see mutual aid efforts. I see young people running for office. I see people of color, marginalized people getting up and saying, I'm the leader that I've been waiting for, and seeing people rally around those leaders. And so don't give up hope, folks. There's more to come. We're going to survive this. And some of us are going to be on the fight back, and some of us are going to be on the other side waiting to catch you when we win, because there got to be other people that are going to be building the thing that you're going to come to once we win this fight back, because we will win, my friend. So keep your chin up, your head up. It is the blessed month of Ramadan right now. So I've had a lot of time to reflect on this, even amidst all the violence and the bloodshed and all the things that we see. But the time for winning for our people is coming very soon. And it's going to be in people like Robert Peters. It's going to be in the little corners of the United States, all across this country, where we're going to see something amazing happening this year and beyond.
Ramadan Mubarak. Linda, thank you for being with us tonight. Y'all, before we close this call tonight, I got to bring us back to these actions. You just heard Linda preach a word about us needing to make sure that we're clear about what we wanted and where we stood on these issues of blocking the things that harm our communities and building the power to win something better. This moment requires us to do both of those things at once. That's exactly what these actions tonight are about. So first, I'm going to ask every single one of you again to sign the Willing to Fight pledge.
I'll deal with you when this is over.
willingtofight.org. We live in the richest country in the
shame
world.
this retard?
But
Can everyone
working
please
people are
shame
struggling
him?
to afford
Shame.
basics while billionaires keep getting richer. Signing this pledge is about making our demands clear so that no elected can say that we were confusing. We are rising together because our families deserve these demands. Second, I'm asking you to find a No Kings action near you at nokings.org. This is going to be a moment when millions of people rise up in the streets together and show that our democracy, what semblance of it is left, only can be in its fullest, most beautiful manifestation because it belongs to us. It is ours, not strong men, not billionaires or politicians who think they can rule without us. Y'all, the only hope for democracy in this country is if we practice it.
Democracy
and we
means
are going to
socialism.
start that sacred praxis in mass numbers with No Kings 3. So I need you to make sure it's on your calendar. I need you to go to nokings.org, make sure you found it on the map. You've signed up to attend. You've got it on your calendar. You've saved the date. And if there's not one in your area, I need you to take a faithful next step, a vulnerable but faithful step into your divine calling to be the person that makes it possible. And third, we invited everyone to help build the political power of our dreams to win by putting in a little of your own hard-won time towards dialing with WFP. You can make a plan and jump in with an amazing crew of volunteers at wfpus.org/dialed in. You heard from Robert Peters tonight. Leaders like Robert don't just show up to Congress by accident. We've talked about this. They get there because working people like you and me organize together and build the power to send them there. And that is the work that we're inviting you into. This is the party that we're trying to build, one that is for and by the working class and all of those that see a future where working people thrive. So if you haven't taken these steps yet, if you have not joined this party, this beloved community, and if you haven't taken these concrete steps with us tonight, I'm going to give them to you one more time. Sign the pledge at willingtofight.org. Find a No Kings action at nokings.org. And take the dialed in pledge at wfpus.org/dialed in. If it's easier to just pull out your phone and text mass call to 30403, you'll get the links to the first two actions. And if you want to do the dialed in pledge, you can text dialed in to 30403 for that pledge. Beloveds, this is how we build power together. We make our demands clear. We show our strength in the streets. We are the consequences if we do not get what we have asked for, and we organize to win. We build the power that we deserve. I want you to show some love to every single one of our speakers tonight. And then once you've shown some hearts and reactions in the chat for that, I want you to love up on each and every one of you who didn't regard it robbery to be on the call with us tonight. I know I say it every call, but it's so true. And I just have to remind us that As always, nobody is coming to save us but us. We are the ones that
Real.
we've been waiting for, y'all. And that's how it's always been.
So real.
For us to win is going to require us to up our discipline game, is going to up us taking some strategic actions, is going to require us not to be obedient with evil and to actually make evil uncomfortable. We've got to commit to taking action together. And I am blessed beyond measure to be taking those steps, increasing my courage, increasing my faith in the people because of the actions of every single one of you. These calls to action that each of you are taking make my life better. And I want to say thank you for it. As new developments unfold, we're going to be reaching back out for more opportunities like this to gather. If you want to make sure that you get the bat signal when it's time to gather again, I need you to be sure that you've texted mass call to 30403. It's been a great call, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. We love you, and good night.
All right. All right. All right. Maybe not a ton of new information on that call, but I do think it is important for people to be exposed to this information. Now, let's talk about what we're going to do for the No Kings protest, because we are going to be going to the No Kings protest as well. Because I think that if you have ever, listen, here's the deal, guys. Let me just be brass tacks about this. And you can find this information over on my Substack. It's karlyn.substack.com. It's right here, Decode the Left educational event. Click on that. That's where I am right now. I will put the link in the chat. This is a free training I am giving on Sunday, March 22nd. That is a week before, almost a week before the No Kings protest, where basically what I want to do is I want to train a whole bunch of volunteers to go to the No Kings protest in your area, to gather intelligence, to scope out which far left groups are going to be there, to collect propaganda, zines, flyers, to take pictures of stickers and things you find on light posts and things like that. I want to train a group of people to go out and create basically a massive volunteer intelligence network about what is going on the ground. The reason for this is I can't go undercover at every single event. And quite frankly, I'm starting to get caught when I go undercover, which isn't good for me, which is why I have to lose all this fucking weight to make myself look irrecognizably different in person. But like, even if that doesn't work, because I am live on the internet, socialists can in theory just tune in and see what I look like. They probably won't, but indeed they could. But I need to basically create an army of people like me. Now, if you are relatively new to the community, you might not know there are people in my community that have been going undercover at leftist events for years. There are people in my community that are actually embedded with far left groups all over different parts of the country, where they're actually dues paying members of their groups. They go to their meetings, they record them secretly. Well, it doesn't come secret when they send the footage to me, but they don't know who they are. I have people actually embedded in groups all over the country, or going to events and zine fairs and protests and things like that, just to collect intelligence and to send it back to the community. Well, no. Listen. I'm going to be just very, very blunt with you for a moment. I will go to jail if I go to the No Kings protest. Grow the fuck up. Literally grow the fuck up. If you are not willing to be a part of the solution, if you are going to let your feelings get in the way of actually doing something productive, if you simply can't go to an event without keeping your fucking mouth shut and not saying anything that will get the shit kicked out of you, which is actually not that hard to do at a No Kings protest. That's why it's a No Kings protest. You are far too stupid to be in my community. Like, get the fuck out. I only want people, my community is an exclusive community. It's not inclusive of all your fucking conservative feelings. If you are not willing to contribute productively, if you are not willing to rein in your fucking juvenile fucking emotions that have led to this situation in the first place, you don't belong here. Go back to the Daily fucking Wire and Fox News. They will accept you and lie to you and get you to do all sorts of stupid shit for them, but at least you won't be here distracting us. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to go undercover at the No Kings protest. I'm not suggesting that at all. If you don't want to do it, if you can't do it, if you're just not ready to do it yet, if you're too nervous to do it, I'm not talking about you. But when you are downright unwilling to contribute productively, because I'm going to go to jail if I go to the No Kings protest because I just can't control myself because I'm a fucking retard. It's like, bro, can we like literally get a fucking grip? The reason that we are doing this with the No Kings protest is because the No Kings protest is not a far left event. It is a progressive event. It will be safe for everyone unless you do something stupid. And part of this webinar is going to be, here are the stupid things that you should avoid doing unless you want to get the shit kicked out of you. We are not going to counter protest. We are not going to be disruptive. We are not going to get into arguments with progressives and then get a clip that goes viral on the internet. This is a serious intelligence gathering operation. This is about seeing what far left groups show up at the No Kings protest, because there will be far left groups at the No Kings protest. They show up, they're either piggybacking on the event to try to recruit people, they're handing out flyers, they're handing out propaganda. There may even be other events in your area that are scheduled around the No Kings protest. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how you go to bookstores in your area to find out what events are going on around the No Kings protest, because that's going to be another thing that you might want to think about in terms of like intelligence gathering. This is going to be, as long as you follow the very clear guidelines that I'm going to give you based on years of going undercover with Antifa and going to a lot of these events, this is supposed to be a very easy way for people to dip their toe in the water of being in leftist environments where, again, unless you do something extremely, extremely stupid that I'm going to instruct you clearly not to do, you will not be in physical danger at this event. There are certainly far left events that people in my community go to that if people knew who they were and they knew what they were doing at that event, they would be in physical danger. The No Kings protest is not one of those things. It is designed as sort of a practice run to get people used to being in those sorts of environments. See, look at this. All I have to do sometimes is yell at someone and they come back around. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, bro, we're back. We're back. Okay, thank you for doing that. Hey, thanks for being a member of the channel for 9 months. Exactly. What kind of American are you? What kind of spy are you? Exactly. Exactly. So this is going to be a free training. You do have the opportunity to make a donation if you want to when you sign up. You do not have to. It is simply there is an option. Whether you do or whether you don't, you're going to get access to the same training. The video will be released on demand after that. So if you can't make it for the live show, you will be able to have access to the video and all that. No. This is a conservative retard talking point. This is like, again, guys, I think this is going to be a really good opportunity for people who consume conservative media to actually go to an event in person to realize how much conservative bullshit spews to their audience. Because if you think this is just old white people, you are fucking retarded and you've never been to a leftist event in your life. I swear, where the fuck have all the retards come from today? And by the way, can we talk about this guy who came in and said, they don't have jobs. They control the unions. Bro, how the fuck do they control the unions if they don't have jobs? They control the K through 12 schools. How the fuck do they control the K through 12 schools if they don't have jobs? They control the news media. How the fuck do they control the news media if they don't have jobs? They control many government agencies to this fucking day. How do they do that if they don't have jobs? They're integrated into the military. How do they do that if they don't have jobs? And on and on and on and on and on. This is one of the most detrimental lies that conservative retards tell their fucking audiences, and then their audiences lap it up because we are the ones with jobs, and because we have jobs, we don't actually have to do anything because we can always just say we can't go and do things because we have jobs. The left doesn't have jobs. We have jobs, except the left controls the unions. They control your kid's school. They control higher education. They control basically every level of fucking government, even though they're not elected because they work in the institutional branches of that government. They control the news media, they control entertainment, and magically they do all of this without having jobs. It is one of the most retarded things that exists on the fucking internet, and it will be the reason that conservatives and their children lose to the left, and it pisses me off more than I can even say that conservatives have brainwashed their audience so badly into complacency, into deflecting every single time when they have the opportunity opportunity to do something. You want to know why the left is so successful at what they do? Because they don't make excuses like this. They go to their jobs, and by the way, many of them are also lawyers and doctors. Where do you think the fucking leftist lawyers come from? Oh, not only do they have a job as a lawyer, they went to law school, motherfucker. They don't have the jobs that we approve of. I don't give a fuck. A job is a job is a job is a job. They don't have menial minimum wage jobs. Yeah, actually, some of them do. Who do you think the Starbucks union workers are? It's like it goes on and on and on and on and on with the amount of excuses about the fucking jobs. They all have fucking jobs. Almost all. There's always going to be onesies and twosies that don't have jobs. Guess what, conservative retards? You have unemployment within your ranks as well. Stop making excuses. Stop fucking deflecting. You know, I'm actually starting to become convinced that it's not even that conservatives don't even have jobs. To be really honest with you, they don't know how organizations work. They don't know how they make decisions. They have no idea how they're managed. I'm actually starting to become convinced that it's actually conservatives who don't have jobs. Just like we found out last night that Trump is literally paying to bus protesters to the anti-Thomas Massey rally. Did everyone see this? Trump is literally bussing in paid protesters to the anti-Thomas Massey rally. You can't make this shit up. It's projection every single time. Guys, this is a place in a community where we do things that are productive. And what we are going to do that is productive is we are going to build the largest volunteer network of leftist infiltrators in the fucking country, all over the place, gathering intelligence about what the far left is doing in their communities. And we're going to use the No Kings protest as a practice run that everyone can participate in and do so safely. And that is the purpose of this. I want to give people a safe environment to practice because I want people to be able to go to far left events and to go to their bookstores and to join their groups and to go to their meetings and all of that stuff. I want you guys to be able to do this, but we're gonna break you in because sometimes people who don't know the language, you need to get used to the environment. You need to get used to being around these groups. You need to get used to speaking to them directly. It's a practice run, okay? It's meant to be a stepping stone to build up to doing bigger things for people who want to do those bigger things, okay? So that is what we're going to be doing. If you want to come to the training, again, it is free to sign up. It is over on my website, karlyn.substack.com. You have the option to make a donation when you sign up. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And that is totally fine. It is just an option. Just uncheck the checkbox. This is just the way. I wish I could make it an optional thing to check, but I can't. It defaults to being checked automatically. So if you don't want to make the donation, just uncheck it. And that's totally cool as well. It is a free link. Share it out with your friends and family if you want other people doing this. And yeah, that would be rad. That would be rad. Well, see, so we have a leftist here. Hey, bro. Couple problems, leftist. Couple problems, communist. Number one, I have literally been going undercover at your retards events for 4 fucking years. And I've been doing it live on the internet the whole time. And so you guys, just because you stumbled over here and you're like, we're watching you, Karlyn. We know your plans. Bro, do you know the names of all the people who are going to be going to all of the No Kings protests all over the country? You might know their screen name. You don't know their actual name. Do you know what they look like? You might know whatever profile picture they're using. That's not necessarily what they actually look like in real life. You guys may know what I look like. You don't know what they look like. You don't know their names. And when people, and I found this over and over again, riddle me this, socialist. How was I able to go undercover with Antifa over and over and over and over and over again at anarchist meetings all over the country in different places and go viral on the internet every single time I did it? How was I able to do that if you guys were monitoring every single thing I'm saying and doing? And just because you guys are paying attention now doesn't mean you know shit. Do you think I haven't set up safeguards with this where there's going to be very few people who have access to the information about who is going undercover where? And they're going to be people that I know. that have been in my community for a long time, and they're going to be people that I trust. And guess what? You guys want to try to infiltrate this? Come to the fucking training. I give a fuck. I'm doing it live on the internet, you communist retard. You can listen to what I'm going to tell people, but you're not going to have access to what gets said in private or what gets communicated in private. That's only going to be restricted to a very few number of people. So don't think I haven't outthought any single plan that you retards might make. Do you think I'm unaware that you guys are paying attention? Do you think I'm unaware that you guys might try to infiltrate my meeting? I've already planned for this, you dumb fuck. I've already planned for this. So best of luck trying to figure out who literally every single person is. Best of luck trying to monitor hundreds of people whose names you don't know, whose pictures you have never seen. Best of luck, motherfucker. Game on. I have taught an army of people how to speak your fucking language, how to recognize your fucking groups, how to recognize your propaganda, how to collect your zines, how to interpret your zines, where you find their meetings, where you find your information. Oh, wait, where your bookstores are so we can go in there and get more information. And we know how to speak the language when we go there, which I've done many times into far left bookstores, completely undetected. I have a mountain of shit from far left bookstores that I bought and collected purely by just dressing up in a fucking costume, hiding my hair or dyeing it a different color, and going in and getting all the information that I wanted and buying whatever the fuck I wanted, even using sometimes my credit cards. I try to use cash, I'm going to be honest, but I have actually used my credit cards with my name on it in socialist bookstores before, and even then you didn't fucking catch on to what was going on. So good luck. Good luck. Game on, faggot. Let's see who wins. All right. See, and guys, if you weren't motivated enough, just know that this is a little game we're playing with the left right now. Can we actually achieve what I want to achieve, which is building a massive volunteer network of people who are going undercover with the left all over the country, constantly collecting their propaganda, constantly secretly recording them, constantly reporting back to what's going on? Oh, we got another one. I'm sorry. Oh, we got a tranny. It's a tranny, guys. I'm sorry. Do you want a king? Bitch. You've stumbled upon the queen fascist fucking YouTube channel of the fucking internet. If I had my way, I would round all you fucking faggots up, put you in a concentration camp, and not let you out until you were good and reprogrammed not to be a fucking menace to society. I would deport all your asses to a third world country right now to get you out of mine. I will burn all your, if I was in charge, I'd be burning all your fucking books. I would be putting anyone in jail that writes books again. I would be silencing you assholes in as many ways as I can possibly think of. So game on. Game on. Let's see. Yes. Yeah. Can we get some lightning bolts in the chat, please? Can we get some round of lightning bolts in the chat? Yes. You figured it out. Welcome. Maybe you're not as dumb as we think you are, but we're still all going to go to your events and we're still going to gather all the info, and there's not really shit you can do to stop us. See, guys, this is part of the fun. This is part of the fun. This is part of the fun. Oh my God, clutching my pearls. You're a hateful Nazi who doesn't care about human rights. You're goddamn right. I don't even think you're fucking human. You're a Nazi. Yup. You figured it out. You figured it out. Congratulations. All right, guys, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to give a great big shout out to everyone who sent in a channel membership. Listen, it was a long, slow road to hitting our channel membership goal for today. It was a long, slow road, but we made it. And I really appreciate everyone who donated. So what that means is we will keep the spy streams for now to be public for everyone. We're going to have at least 3 spy streams next week. And so, as long as, again, I will show up for you, as long as you show up for me, as long as we keep hitting our membership goals, then we will keep things public as we can. Tomorrow is going to be a happy hour stream. Tomorrow is bro, it must be lonely being so angry. I'm surrounded by hundreds of friends right now. Like, one in the chat if you're on my team, 2 in the chat if you're on the team of the tranny. 1 in the chat if you're on my team, 2 in the chat if you're on the team of the tranny. I'm surrounded by hundreds of friends right now. What are you talking about lonely? You're the one that's lonely here, bro. You're the one that's lonely. You're the one that doesn't belong. You're the one that we don't like. You're the one that we want to deport from the country. We're going to take all your fucking trans meds away from you too. Enough of that shit. That's not going to happen anymore. Anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Don't worry, we are not going to have a channel membership goal tomorrow. If you guys want to send in money, you totally can. You're going to piss off communists like this every time you send me money, which is really great for me. I appreciate that. But guys, that is all I got for today. Very successful couple of spy streams, successful first stream. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. We're going to do a little bit of a lighter stream tomorrow. It's happy hour, it's drama content, it's internet intrigue, and all sorts of other. I've got so much stuff I want to watch. So we're going to have a little marathon of levity tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for supporting my work. Thank you for allowing me to do what I do. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Have a good one, and
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Would you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that? is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.